Did everybody enjoy lunch today? I thought it was pretty good, wasn't it? We're going to go on and get started. Got a pretty good afternoon here. Some really good information coming our way. But first of all, I would like to thank the Kentucky Soybean Promotion Board with joint with the United Soybean Board for sponsoring this event, these management workshop sessions. So we were talking about that over the table. It's kind of like going to church and you get the bulletin that's got all the announcements in it. I'm not going to read the bulletin, but this kind of gives it, about the board, how it got started, and how we got started doing these management meetings. And I think they have been very helpful to the Kentucky soybean producers. So very appreciative for the board taking time to sponsor these events. Got a little video. Got to do a commercial when we do these things, okay? So you get your money's worth. So they told me I've got a button to push. Watch this little video here. I push the button there.
Push it again.
Who's the #1 protein source in chicken feed? You are. Who just increased sales to Egypt by 700%? You did. Who made a huge deal with Goodyear? You again. Take a victory lap. When you pool your resources through your soy checkoff, you're making sales. You're making breakthroughs that all come back to your bottom line. That's you. That's who has your soy checkoff. Moving soy forward. Moving you forward.
All right, real quick, that's one of your soy checkoffs, $1. There was, and I memorized this and I forgot it, on what the checkoff, but here recently, what it's adding to our bottom dollar. Yeah. What was, I'm sorry? Yeah, so it's very substantial, so very appreciative for that. So today, we've got Kevin Matthews with us. Many of you all probably heard with Kevin, seen his podcast out on different, doing out on tours with Extreme Ag. Kevin is the owner and operator of Matthews Family Farm in North Carolina, Precision Nutrient Management and Deep Creek Grain. Kevin spends a tremendous amount of his time testing and implementing a lot of new technology. And I think that's part of what you're going to do today is kind of share a little bit about what you've been doing, Kevin. He also has a partner with him, Chad Henderson. In talking with Kevin last night, he said he brought Chad along just with something. Voice is good today, but we've got a backup plan or another set of information that we could draw upon with Chad. He's from Madison, Alabama, so about 2.5 hours just due south here. So today's topic will be attention to detail while maximizing yields from planting to harvest. So before I turn it over to Kevin, I want to do one little pitch here. If you are not a Kentucky Soybean Association member, we sure would love to have you join our little happy group. Okay? So it's a great organization that I have tremendously gotten a lot out of myself, and they do a lot of good work. Both the association does a lot of work in frankly local, state, and national government affairs. And then you've got your promotion board that handles events like this and research. So without further ado, I did forget that, didn't I, Ray? I forgot one of the most important things. It's to return thanks. It's because we kind of ate, so we're going to do some post thinking for our lunch. So if you would, Heavenly Father, we just come to you and thank you for this day that you just truly blessed us with. We thank you for this opportunity to gather together as stewards of your land, the ones that you've entrusted to raise food and fiber for your children of this world. We thank you for this meal that you provide with us and those that have prepared it. We pray that the meal that blesses our body so we can further bring glory to your name. For these things we ask in your Son, Jesus' precious name. Amen. Mr. Kevin, are you ready to go?
We'll be in just a second.
All right. You did bathrooms, need to, go right outside the door. So, big thanks to our ladies at the soybean office. Miss Debbie, she's there at the door. Miss Ray's right here. Miss Becky, she's over here. So if you get a second, tell them thank you for all the work, the amount of work they do to put this thing on is unreal. And they have taught us, those of us board members, two special words that the only two words that we need to know, and that's yes, ma'am. So, Kevin, it's all yours, buddy.
Thank you, sir. Well, I could get up here, I'll stand up here for just a minute, kind of introduce myself. So, you can see my family, that was kind of at our yard, overlooking the river valley. We're in the Yakin River Valley. It's kind of like a microclimate. So if they want to test for disease, we're where it happens at. Us and up at Andrews, up on the mountains, near Asheville, just west of there. So we do a lot of research for BASF. Anybody that's got a product that they claim is a good fungicide, they're gonna come to us. Your Veltima, we used it for 3 years before it ever got a name. So it kind of opens a lot of doors, a lot of fun. What makes it so different where we are is we have heavy dews and fogs, and usually we'll experience, even in a dry time, 12, 14 hours of leaf wetness every day. So makes it challenging actually. But gray leaf spot in corn, it can absolutely kill the corn crop within a week or so if it gets out of control. But soybeans, anything there, you get it, we got it. But so this kind of picture of my family. That's Cindy, my wife, my son Timothy, my daughter Danielle, my least daughter Megan. They didn't like the fact that picture was up there the other day, so I had to add this next picture here. Well, maybe. Jeff, what'd you do to my clicker? Well, let's see what we can get it on. Yeah, right here it is. Let's pull it out and start over. If all else fails, retire it. Well, so much for that part. Looks like I am going to have to use Chad here. So we, let's see here, what's going on. Maybe the computer, folks. Imagine that. Work like that. Let's try it now. I guess we just had to make it think. So, that backdrop you seen happened to be what was called the wedding corn, and my daughter decided to get married this past Labor Day. Labor Day wedding. How foolish is that? I mean, we got Hurricane Alley, we were out in the middle of picking corn, and having irrigated corn, and it needed to be picked, but no, we got to plan a whole week for a flipping wedding. And so, you know, I got a happy wife, so I did what any good husband would do. I used Jeff's famous word, yes ma'am. So we pretty well put corn picking on hold for 3 or 4 days, and I did about the whole week. And had the wedding, my daughter, she got married, and we got a good husband, we think. Hopefully that'll work out good. And of course, my youngest daughter is about as big as my oldest daughter now. But so age, we got Danielle at 23, Timothy 21, and Megan is 15 now. But amazing how fast they grow up. That other picture was 3 years old. Just gets way with it. I like to give credit to the Lord. If it weren't for Him, I absolutely wouldn't be here. Y'all know how trying farming is. But faith, family farming is something I started putting on my slides many years ago. And I kind of have been blessed with a lot of friends. I don't know a whole lot. I know people like Chad Henderson right here down in Madison, Alabama. I know Ryan, different people around, Jeff King. And that's how we learn stuff. There's not a single person in this room that couldn't come to my farm or Chad's farm and help us. And just like we're here hoping we can give something to help y'all. Nobody's got all the answers. If they do, they are, you don't need to be around them. God's the only one with all the answers. That's just simple. But Mr. C.W. Backman and Stephen Albright, they passed away, but they was mentors to me as a young farmer growing up. They've been on, C.W. had been there at the farm. He taught me so many different things. He was an excellent farmer down in South Carolina. And then Stephen Albright was a farmer down in Texas. He was in a peer group with us. And he was just an excellent individual. And you never know what tomorrow's plan. We eat supper at the Commodity Classic. He had a kidney stone that had been bothering. And he said, I'm going to have his kidney stone busted when I get back home. And he said, he got it scheduled for next week. Didn't think nothing about it. So he had a kidney stone busted. He was in recovery, had a massive heart attack, died, never come back, died right there. How old was he? 56. Excellent shape. Wasn't overweight or anything. It's, you never know. So always say your prayers and be grateful. But this is my family. I got Mr. Chad Henderson here, and I'm going to let him talk a little bit about him and his operation and his family.
It's good to see y'all. I guess y'all can hear me okay. It's good to see y'all again. I'm from straight south of y'all here, a couple hours. Madison, just about 30, 40 miles across the Tennessee line down there. We work around the Tennessee River right there in the river valley down there. I see some of y'all's trucks come that way, coming down to Boney. Y'all ever get held up down there, y'all holler at me when you're about 15 miles away, and boys allowed to hold up at any time down there. So, but now we're the same way. We're a family farm, farm with my dad and my first cousin partnership, and we've been blessed as well. We share a lot of information with a lot of folks, and we also test a lot. We're part of this extreme ag group, and it's just something that I guess has been on my plate for a while. Is I'm always trying something new. Want to know why it works, how it works, when it works. So a lot of things we fail at, but the one or two things we do win at, then we can make something out of it. Because I tell people all the time, I don't really want to know what works. I want to know the list of stuff that don't work. Because that's when we're going to make money on. Because this is about, everybody's wanting to make bushels, and it's about the days we're in, we're making money. We need to make money to stay in business. We need to make money to send our kids to school. We need to make money to keep our farms going, And so it's as much about efficiency as y'all know on y'all's farms, the same way it is on our farms. So again, just a family farm down there, and I just don't know all the answers, but trying to figure out one at a time.
So Chad and I, we bounce a lot of things off each other. The thing I like about Chad, he's a little further south than I am. So when we're experimenting with all this stuff, he can try it first, and then if it kills his and don't come up, then I'll use it.
Yeah, don't do this. Don't do this.
But, so you got.
That's kind of what I'm known for too. I've probably killed more than most people in this room, So if you ain't, I ain't got that many years left. We hope we do. But I just look at it this way: good farmers probably got 40 crops in it. If we just take a little bit at a time, we put on ounces like they talk about, I ain't gonna make it. I'm gonna run out of time. So I'm gonna go the other end and kill it, and then I'll just back up from there. So that's kind of my mentality on the thing. We drag race through some, so that makes it where, if you ain't blowing it up, you ain't trying.
A successful drag race is when you can load it in the car, when it can load itself in the car, right?
That's what we was talking about.
In the holler, yeah, in the holler. But, people, they hear these high yields and they say, well, they don't farm that much, say, just a small farm or whatnot. Pretty good sized operation for our area, and Chad as well. Chad, you're 7,000 acres, I believe. We're over 6,000. But no, we do about 3,000 acres of double crop, or actually cover crop acres, and we do about 500 acres of double crop of wheat, and then plant our soybeans behind it, just like you guys do here. Y'all do a lot better job on wheat here than we do. Y'all, I think this western Kentucky area has probably got some of the prettiest wheat, soft red winter wheat you can grow. The yields are fabulous that you guys get. But, our disease hurts us. We do have, some irrigation, but you can see the stats there, most of our stuff's dry land. So we gotta make it work. We don't always focus on the high yield, we wanna focus on what makes the most money, as Chad just said. And, this is a research farm that we have. It started out as an irrigation, net film subsurface drip irrigation. So there's drip tape every 40 inches in that field. And it's in 13 management zones. And we've got more management zones where we can add more acres to that farm. And we've just not added it yet, but we eventually will. When we go this old red clay, when I was renting that land before I bought it, if you had 120 bushel corn crop and a 50 bushel soybean crop, that was a pretty decent corn crop. It was real dry in nature. It was some of the worst ground at a farm. We had the opportunity to buy it, we had water, and we knew if we put irrigation on it, we could make it pay. Without irrigation, it'd never pay for itself. I guess it would, but it took a lot of miracles, but I just couldn't pencil it out. So we pumped water out of the river. And so it works good. So that comes up. Never give up. That's I picked the phone up. Chad and I was supposed to be in South Dakota speaking. We got test plots out there. We were supposed to be in a Ag PhD field day speaking, and this is right at the end of the road that I live on. So when I go to the office every morning or to the farm, that's what I look at. It's that field sitting there at the stop sign that's straight in front of me. And we started getting these yellow spots up, and I got my consultants out there, and we got looking, and it come back with dry weather potassium deficiency. And those beans were at R6. That's late. And all my agronomists that work with me said, there's not much you can do this late in the game to make any dividends. So I called Chad, and me and him was on the phone with Chad. He said, what all you got in the warehouse? I said, man, we got everything you can think of in here. And I said, we got a dash of this and a dash of that. Put it together, cover it up. And so we'll get to what we've done and what the outcome is. But y'all just think about that throughout. Anything you have, areas in your farm, you don't ever want to give up. And that fourth quarter is when you can make a lot of money, whether it's corn, soybeans, or wheat. The fourth quarter has a lot of profit on the table that we overlook because we've got it laid by, we're comfortable, and we want to go on and do the next thing and get ready for harvest. But that crop may be wanting more. So, as Jeff said, we're looking at high yields and that's planting, that's not planting, and that's intentionally like that. And 162, the most that I've seen cutting soybeans is in the low 200s in areas of the field. That's not a whole field average, but it shows you what potentials are there, and that's pretty cool when you can do that. All of our data that you'll see here today has been weighed and verified by a third party, and you can see Pioneer on this. We do research work for Pioneer, and they funded a lot of it, and that's why you see their logo on there. And then you'll see Extreme Ag, which is a company that Chad and I are owners in, that will do the funding as well. The reason for third-party verification is that way nobody can come up and say, well, Pioneer was there doing this, reading the scales, they wrote down and make sure they was the winners or they had the best yields. We don't play that game. We let North Carolina Cooperative Extension be there and do all the yield measurements. What it is.
I'm glad you showed said something about that, because I had come by just like that.
Yeah, you had to jerk back on that lever.
I had to
You
get one
good
more.
marker right up there, it looks good. That's the only way I grow 450 bushel corn, is go jerk that lever back real fast. That's right. It's hard to time, man, I've tried. So this was at the field day, this is one of the deals. But, so planning. Chad, talk about that a minute there.
Planning, we was looking at some of these slides and I said, well, we're in the Yadkin River Valley, I don't think y'all can spell real well, it's planting to success. And he said, no, it's planting. I said, oh, I was hoping you meant that. You know, a lot of these folks, you know, we talk about high yields or we talk about any other yields, and if we could buy the fertilizer blend that it took, that people think that they take to grow 400 bushel corn, we'd all just buy it. We just buy that blend, we blow it up there in the field, we make it. Or if it was 120 bushel beans, just buy the blend, blow it out there and make it. But it don't work quite that easy, you know, it's all about available nutrients and available uptake and timing of uptake, and you know, it's a lot of, we all know there's a lot of laws and limits and factors that happen on each farm every year. So, you know, that planting is a big deal for us, you know, it's the year in front of the crop in front of what you had going, and the nutrient uptake then, you know, how much potash you put out, how much chlorine you dump in the soil, or how much chicken litter you put out, and what's available and what ain't. So that's kind of where we're going with this, is to make some of these yields that we try to make, you know, when you're talking about a contest spot or a high level spot or irrigated even, you know, the irrigated part, all my irrigated fields are positioned this way. You know, we're thinking we're most of the time we're 3 years ahead on the nutrient package. Is what it usually takes to get the soil primed. And once you get in that prime, then you got to think about the uptake and then what you're removing off of it. You know, so just keep that in the back of your mind as we're going through this, as it is a time sensitive thing. You know, that we can't just buy this and let's just make 400 bushel, let's make 150 bushel beans, and let's get to sowing with it.
And there's a lot of difference in varieties. You know, some of you guys in here may drill beans, some of you guys may be on 15-inch centers, some of you may be on 20-inch centers, there may be some 30s in here. And certain varieties respond well to certain environments, and you got to figure that out on your farm. And you can't, I mean, you can look at that book and you can go through the seed selection, and some seed companies do better jobs than others, and you can kind of pick out which one's going to be more branchy, more of a single stalk. But the management is key, and you need to do it in your environment. We can't stand here and tell you how to do what you do in Kentucky. We can show you what we do and what has worked, and we're going to show you what don't work. But please do research on your own farm. Another thing is, as we're talking at any time, feel free to ask questions. If you don't agree with something we say, please bring it up, because that makes good discussion, and we might learn something from ourselves. We're not right all the time. We can show you what we proved on our farms. Soil sampling. So you've been trying to figure out what varieties you want to plant for next year. You got to get your soil sampled, keep it done. I know times has been tight. For us, being in Hurricane Alley, we had 4 floods straight in a row. And my wife sitting here, I told her, and I told Chad and all the guys, I said, if we have a 5th flood and I lose 5 crops, I'm done. I'm selling out. I'm not losing everything that we worked for just so I can say I farm. And thank goodness, you know, God knows how far to bend you. And I swear I don't see how he could bend us as far as he did before he finally let off. But thank goodness 2021 was a better year, because 2020 we had bridges that had just been built on Highway 601 that the water was slapping the bridges, and they was on 500-year floods. There's plantation houses that had water in them that had never had water in them. And I was in one field of corn, and it was 30 foot over the tassel of the water level. And you just don't want that mess. It's bad. This is kind of soil on our uplands, just on red clay. That's Gaston clay loam. Very little topsoil. Chad there in Madison, pretty similar to that, about the same color. They tell us that right there will grow, I think, 35 bushel beans and 120 bushel corn. But with that farm right there, it's got a 300 bushel APH, actually 300 plus, with irrigation, and 100 plus APH with soybeans. As far as our soil samples, just so you know, this is the current one, and I'm going to show you what they were 3 years ago. we've been planning, we've been trying to get this land up. And, you can see that pH, we're trying to stay in that 6-7 range, 6.5, 6.7. We'll get into that more, what that does for us. One thing that we're real big is our calcium to mag ratio. We really want all the calcium we can get compared to our mag. We're normally high in magnesium, and that's a real big deal. That clay gets so tight, it's just like bricks. So we try to get that, we focus on pH and calcium to mag. That's my main things. When we go to South Dakota, when we got up there, we run into the same thing. Planter setup, I'm gonna let Chad talk a minute on this. This is critical.
Everything I say right here with Kevin Planter is wrong. I'm just messing with y'all. Now, we all fix our planters. Our planters are in the shop now. The guys are at home. We're working on planters. We got them stripped apart, looking them over. We'll plant a week or so, a couple weeks ahead of y'all. But guys, we can't get enough emphasis on the planter setup and being ready to run, ready to go, doing a good job. Anybody that has electric planters, run them meters out there in the driveway. Y'all can do it as good as they can do it, until you get the meters that you can't fix. Run the meters in the driveway, make sure the planter's ready to go before it gets in the field. Because you can't watch everything that's going on and chasing meters too, trying to get the planter set. If you don't have electric meters, I would highly suggest somebody run your meters to just take that variable out of it. A lot of times everybody has it's like Mike Tyson said, everybody got a plan till you get punched in the mouth. So it's the same way with planting. Everybody, we sitting here in this room and we all got a bunch of good ideas and everything's good until that time frame hits and we're already going to the field, and then you get another rain and then you get one more rain, like everything's out the window. We plant. So, just keep that in mind as we move forward, and make sure the first thing is first. Make sure your planter's in good shape, and make sure your components are in good shape as well. Whether it's starting at the front and going to the back, and just take each unit and just take a little time, take a little pain, make sure, look it over. Don't just trust the guys to fix that unit and say that it's ready and the planter's set. So that would be my input on that, and we can go as deep in that as y'all want to go. But,
right here is something that really surprised us. So we did research for Greg Sauter with 360 Oak Center through Extreme Ag, and they sent us these tanks, very nice tanks, 700-gallon tanks, 350 gallons a piece. We had been previously running our tanks out on the front. I had the old farm chem tanks I had built, had 400-gallon capacity out on the front, sticking way out. But one thing we had trouble with was when it got a little down on the damp side, we was getting a lot more pinch road, and also pulling out in traffic. It was really dangerous with those tanks sticking out in the front. We got a lot of people and cars on the road. And so I thought, just on the traffic side alone, I like this. But it's so, I will admit that the balance on it is unbelievable. We didn't do an exact yield on the corn and the soybeans each to see exactly what the difference was row to row, but you could visibly walk through when the ground was in the softer conditions and see less pinch row with the tractor that had these tanks on it versus the other 8370 that did not have them. And it's just balanced. It's balanced so much better across the tractor, but they are pricey. They're like $15,000 for a set of tanks. But they do work. Your steering's a whole lot easier on the tractor. It flows good, it does good. On ours, Chad runs a concealed. This is the Gator 2x2. I won't get into much of that. We actually are the ones, myself and a fella down in the southwest corner of Georgia, come up with this idea together. He come up with the idea and we built it, and then a friend of ours called us and wanted a picture of one, so I sent him a picture of our other planter that we made, and he gave it to his cousin that I didn't know was his cousin, that was the head designer for Gator, and they made one, and we didn't get a patent on it. I guess I should have, but I guess it's kind of like I should have bought a lottery ticket, but anyhow, that would have been nice. But But it worked good on corn, so we do our soybeans like that. We treat our soybeans just like we do our corn crop. Everything we do is the same with our planters, the focus on it, the seed spacing, everything. So, since we done this, you know, conceals come out, we do run the dome curve time closing wheels. You see them bolts right there? There's actually a bolt there, and then there's a sickle section right there off of the 600 series platforms, the double sickle. If you take a grinder and cut one in half, heat it a little bit and bend it up, you put that thing right there, bolt it on, and there'll be no wrapping up on that closing wheel. It stops all your wrapping. We've also got, this picture don't show it, but the bolts right there, SD Distributors makes it. It's a trash guard. If you do not have that and you're running True V closing wheels of any kind, that will be the best $9.95 per row you will ever spend. They work. They will not let no rocks get in between those closing wheels, roots, or anything. You won't get back off. And, but they don't advertise them. I found out about them from my guy Andy and at Performance, their range services. And he told me about them, and he was like, well, they've been around for years, Kevin, why aren't you running them? I ain't never heard of them. I just jump out of the tractor and run back there and get the rock out and lay it on the step and go get out and do it again. So, like I say, that's why we're here. Hopefully we can give you something that'll make your plant season a little better. Typically in the southeast, you know, that's the normal thing. Everybody wants to grow the determinate beans, group 5s through 7s. And I don't like being one. I don't like cutting 35, 40 bushel soybeans. And it's kind of, I don't know, I guess we're getting older, but it's kind of bad when you're cutting 70 bushel beans and you're not excited about it. I never dreamed I'd say that, but we do that a lot. You need to figure out what works for you. We're in determinants. We're growing group 3s and 4s in our operation. Chad, are you mostly 3s and 4s?
Yep. 4s, mostly mid 4s. We'll be anywhere from 4.4 to a 4.8 up to a 5.2, but they get a little rank on us. So we'll be at 4.8, 4.7, 4.8. We'll do that in the early beans as well as the double crop beans. We plant most of ours are double crop beans, so we like trying to focus on that as much as any will. Our corn rotation bean wheat deal lets us have, probably got about 1,000 acres of river bottoms that's single bean, and but for the most part, we're double crop beans.
The electric planter, when John Deere come out with the Exact Merge planter, they invited David Hewlin out to look at the planters, the electric planters. And my background is electronic engineering. That's what I graduated college with. And all I could think of was wires, fertilizer, water, dirt. Everything I was taught in college, it didn't mix with electricity. They was wanting to combine. And I thought, I don't know about this. So we met with them and they showed us the Exact Merge, and it was impressive. And we seen what it could do, and all they was focused on was corn. And when I seen it, I said, man, that's what we need for soybeans. We got, you know, we're on 22-inch corn rows, so we got 10, 12 inches to play with on our corn spaces, but on our soybeans, we just got 2 inches, 3 inches, 4 inches. So the more accurate I can be in that narrower spot, the more better off I'm going to be on seed placement and stem diameter and getting a more consistent plant. So this shows how consistent those electric planters are. Most of you guys in here seen them run now, you probably own them. It's pretty amazing what that thing can do. Just absolutely amazing to me. We treat our own seed. We have our own commercial seed treater. Not everybody has that opportunity. I realize that. But these are some of the products we use. I really like the Cruiser Max optimized type program, but then with the SPS issues we're having, the Legos doing options that do well also. If you're gonna grow high yielding soybeans, you need to really focus on this June 21st date. And I know most of you ladies and gentlemen in here know that that is extremely critical. But it still baffles me when I have people call and they say, well, I ain't planting group 3s no more, they did awful. I'm not gonna plant group 4s, they done awful. Well, what variety did you plant? They tell me. Oh, well, that don't add up when I look at what other farmers are doing, what we've done. These numbers ain't adding up. Well, when did you plant your group 3s? Well, I planted them first in April. Okay, when did you plant your group 4s? Well, I planted them last. So you planted his earliest maturing first and his latest maturing last, and he didn't see no yield gain. I'm going back to my group 5s. I've heard that so many times. So working with Dr. Dan Poston, he was a former soybean guru with Pioneer. One of the most brilliant men I know is Chad Henderson's neighbor. So both of us has got to work with him extensively. He was able to develop a maturity and latitude research, so we know exactly what our maturity we need to be planting by plant date and latitude. If y'all don't know that for your farm, it is critical. On our farm, we will dump the seed out of the planter and switch varieties based off plant date maturity. When we start planting soybeans early April, which is totally wrong to be doing, we're going to be planting the latest mature group 4 we can get. We want to be beginning bloom just before summer solstice. We want to take full advantage of summer solstice June 21st. Now when we get into May 16th through May 25th, I'm going to be planting group 3s. And I guarantee you, in my latitude, our latitude's about the same as Nashville, where we're at. For us, on our farm, there will nothing beat a group 3, a 3.6, 3.8 maturity in that May plant date. I've got about 13 years of data and test plots that backs up that on my farm. You need to do it on your farm and find out what works. It's not the same everywhere. But when I say bushels, I'm talking 10 bushel difference, sometimes 20 bushel difference in yield. Just by changing and matching your maturity with your latitude and your plant date. That's free money. That's easy money. You don't have to spend nothing to get it, just a little bit of effort. Seed placement. So you hear me talk about that. We did studies on stem diameters. And we actually had calipers out in the field. They was electronic. Read them remotely. They turned out to be the biggest bust you ever seen. When they was reading, they was cool, but the wires, the mice loved them. And about 2 weeks into the field, they would chew every wire they were out there. And they didn't last. They wasn't practical. But the company kept coming up with all these excuses, but at the end of the day, it wasn't practical. The neat thing that we took away from it was the correlation between consistent stem diameter, consistent node spacing, and pod retention. It's just like corn. You get doubles, you're gonna have a good plant and a bad plant. There's no difference. Look at your soybeans just like you do your corn. Fertilize. How many of y'all bought any fertilizer lately? You scared to raise your hand? How many of y'all bought your fertilizer early and saved a bunch of money? I'll let you raise your hand now.
I ain't got no money then.
I was trying to get my operating note paid off. But there's options out there. So we work with Nature's, Agri-Liquids, Ag-Explorer, Tiva, Concept Agritech, all kinds of different companies we work with. We do research. Every one of them's got some good products. every one of them got some products that don't work well on my farm. As honest as I can be about it. Right, not too far from here, over in Cape Girardeau, Yield Plus, Roger Smith, he and I have been doing work together for many, many years. I can't tell you how much respect I got for that man. Unreal. So, I was going through years of spreadsheets. I had collaborated in one spreadsheet with all my tissue samples and all my soil samples, and I looked for if I can buy 3 components to go into my fertilizer, what do I need to focus on? What's the most common limiting factor I have across all my acres? And I told Roger what all I wanted, and he said, Kevin, you cannot get so much in a gallon. I said, yeah, but I want this. He said, well, you're not going to get it. He said, but this is what I can come up with. So if you call and tell me you want the soybean fertilizer, Kevin Matthews, the soybean fertilizer, he'll know exactly what ingredients it is, and he'll mix it for you. So started out, we was running 10 gallons and a tube of 2 on each side. Only fertilizer we was running, it was a 2.9, 1721 with micros in it. And unbelievable. Nature's has got a product called Triple Option. It is the only one that I have found that is what would you call it, commercial blend?
That's close to that.
Yeah, it's publicized commercial blend. We're getting nearly the same yield responses with it. It's a little bit more pricier than what I get from Roger. I can't sit here and tell you which one's better. They both do very well. Rogers is a cleaner product. I will say that. It looks like that water right there. It's amazing how clean it is. But that's our total fertility program. We started out at 10 gallons an acre. Roger calls me and says, Kevin, he says, you need to cut back. Now, I just told you, he's the fertilizer salesman, and he says, you need to cut back. I like dealing with people like that. He said, I think you can get the same amount of money and yield if you cut back to about 7 to 8 gallons a acre for what we was doing with our program. So we done that, and it's been great. It's been great. We're not, in our cover crops, you can see a road behind every soybean road where the fertilizer that was left over, carryover fertilizer. So that tells me I didn't use it all up on the soybean crop. To get the high yield, you gotta make all this stuff work. Nutrient command, irrigate, you just don't want nothing to have a bad day. Timely harvest, a lot of bushels can be left on the table then. And right here, adjust management each year and make improvements. So that means I didn't do anything that satisfied me last year. There are a few things I like, but I want to improve on all of it. And Chad, he can run 4 flat, and you want to do a 3/8 next time. Yeah. He's a drag racer. Pretty cool. We got to watch him. How fast was that? 178, 200 miles an hour?
178, 179, and run 8.
An eighth of a mile. It's getting her done. He was spending. They make more money in Alabama farming than we do in North Carolina. We can't afford a drag car. Light, that's free. That's your June 21st we talked about. Nutrition, place it right where it needs it. The right product. Jeff King over here's got the right product for you. He'll save the right seed. And
Guaranteed.
if you don't believe it, ask him. But yeah, and all your rights. Water. We talked about irrigation. How many of y'all got wet areas in the field that limits your yield? A little bit of tiling, might just need to be a little bit of grading, just a drag pan, move some dirt around and fix some low places. Tiling ain't to fit all answers, just like irrigation ain't. You gotta get the land right. Pest management. That could be anything. You might have a farm that's got tremendous deer problem. Or for us, we got deer and we got one farm with a couple farms with wild hogs. Y'all ain't got hogs out here, do you? Y'all want them? You don't need them. Y'all got them, ain't you?
Well, you're not in the area, that's 20, 30 miles, but we're dodging them too. We're trying our darndest to dodge.
They're awful. nutrition. Asking the right question.
I got a question.
Yes, sir.
Back up 2 slides. Can you do that?
One more.
Yeah, well, yeah, back up 1 more. If you had to pick one in, which one would you pick first, and which one would you pick? Back on 1 more slide. 1 more. Right there. If you had to pick 1 or 2 of them, which one would you pick first, kid? On which one's on high? If you're gonna make the most beans, you're gonna make. If you had to pick early planting or
Early plant.
control insects.
Early plant.
Y'all have a bad problem with stink bugs. We got a darn stink bug problem down there, and I think I'm losing a lot of yield on the tail end, and I'm thinking like R6. I'm talking about like when we're all tired, and I'm done, I'm ready to go home, and I done put all year in, and everything else, your corn is starting to dry down, you know, and the bugs and stink bugs are gonna go somewhere, y'all. I probably lost more yield this year to stink bugs on the tail end because I was just tired. I said, I'm done. I'm out. I'm not going back again. So y'all,
Is that the red banded one like they got in the Delta you're talking about?
no, I hadn't got any of them. It's just normal, just a green and brown stink bug. Y'all pay attention to those. I just popped in on I didn't mean to back off on the slide, but it popped in there. The biggest things for us is the early planting. I don't know how early we can plant the things. I mean, Jeff may have, he probably don't want to talk about it, but I'll talk about it. I'm gonna try to plant some. I don't know how, I think it take a freeze to kill them. I'm pretty sure it take a freeze to kill them. You know,
You can kill them.
I'm gonna kill them. I'm gonna kill them. If it warms up 1st of March, I'm planting soybeans. I'm gonna plant soybeans before I go to the gin show. But, you know, we're gonna try it.
That's like in end of February, ain't it?
1st of March. If it warms up, we have a dry spell, I'm gonna try it. So,
He goes first, y'all.
I'm gonna show you what's gonna happen. So that, and the next thing is, like I said, mine last year was the stink bugs on the tail end. The stink bugs are gonna be huge for us. And really pay attention to that last shot of fungicide on the tail end. We're seeing some benefits out of that late R5, R6 on the fungicide. And you know, this is just if we have this certain yield goal that we're looking at, just take it all the way to the end. Don't
What is
think-
that deal go? I mean, what is it for you guys?
For me, it's anything.
Non-irrigated, just normal farming, what's that deal go?
Oh, non-irrigated, I ain't got, man, I'm 3 weeks away from droughts, you know, I ain't in that Yakin River Valley like you, it's moisture, you know, you talking about getting a 10th of dew every morning.
Yeah.
So, but no, I mean, on a serious note, I mean, if we can plant early, we're gonna make dry land, we can make anywhere from 60 to 85, 90 bushel. We can irrigate them, and we still hit that wall, you know, you hit that wall somewhere around, that first wall to me, somewhere around 95 bushel. The next wall, somewhere around 110, 112, that's a darn serious wall. It's hard to hold the pods for me down there. I don't know if it's the heat or what it is, but it's harder to hold the pods down there. And it's probably a lot of it's self-inflicted, you know, whether it's lodging or what have you, you know, from, you know, we didn't talk about as much on population, or you may be still getting there, but.
Yeah, we'll get there.
So that was just a few things that jumped in my mind. Just pay attention to the stink bugs on the tail ends, pay attention to the late season, whether it's a cheaper fungicide or whatever. Just if you gotta go across it, just make sure and take note of that, 'cause that's what got me this last year. 'Cause I had a lot of stuff right, or we was somewhere around, we was looking at, they'd have been checked a couple of times, and we was somewhere around 118 to 122 on the yield goal. This was irrigated some beans that we've been testing and playing with, you know. And then we desiccated the beans, and we got 4.5 inches of rain over 2 weeks. They cut 85 bushel. That's how, you know, and I can't control that. I mean, it's just what happens. I mean, that's what happens when you play with desiccated soybeans in front of the rain, and then you sit there and get the wrong weather pattern on them. It's just luck of the draw. But that's my 2 cents on that.
I think this is interesting right here. Dr. Poston threw this at us when we was doing this research with him. He wanted us to know how much we really needed in fertility to do this. But since working with Roger and Tommy Roach at Nature's and the Ag Explorer group and different ones, it's interesting of how much less you got to spend and still getting those yields. So be careful what you see right here, but this is what they wanted to base it on. They paid us for the research. And, their yield goal was 160 to 180. That's where they wanted to be at. And, he would have been in that 160 range if the hurricane hadn't come on this crop here in 2018. And then I'll show you, I want you to see that, and then you can see what yields we was at in 2021, with just traditional practices. I think that's pretty good, because that's where you ROI's at. You want to get your nutrients balanced. You can't just go out there and just throw the kitchen sink at it. Throwing everything out there, you can cause a lot of problems. So be specific, know your soils. We done told you to do your soil sampling, you got that done. You know your soils, know your limiting factor. You got your pH adjusted. So you gotta have all those things in place. Now we gotta learn to plan. So you're gonna put 100,000, 120,000, maybe some of you do 140,000. I don't know what population you do. What's the average population in the room? Who in here does 140,000? Good, sir. Who's at 120 and won't go to 140?
There you go, go on down, keep going.
Who's at 100,000? Now who's real brave and will drop down to 80,000? That's right on line. We're gonna show you some 70,000 harvest plants here in just a minute. It was not intentional, I'll tell you that.
Kevin, has anybody correlated? Go ahead.
You guys have any issues with slugs down south?
I don't. I hear that's a big deal.
That's been a big thing for us, guys. We're starting to put populations back up. We're seeing some issues with slug.
So you are actually seeing it here in Kentucky, Western Kentucky? Here? Really?
I
hope y'all keep it.
2 to 3 times to get a standard thing.
Is there anything we can put down with a planter? I know, how many people in here put liquid down with their planter? On beans.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm like y'all, I don't allow liquid that goes through my planter except when we're testing. But is there anything we can do for us? Is there anything we can spray? Is it a band deal where it's nothing we can do to kill them?
They're mollusks.
Sir?
They're mollusks, and you gotta have a bait.
I hope y'all hold them too, but they probably coming my way.
I'm actually surprised that y'all got slugs with your soil types here. It kind of screws the heck out of me. We're not.
So a dish to get them.
Is it typically more in a heavy residual environment? A lot of cover?
Does a strip tail help any? Not really, you still got them in the middle, so they just come through it.
Yeah, they move to the road.
Well, our planter is set up, we have infrared and then we have our 2x2 on each side of the road. And, I just don't, I'm not experienced enough to tell you. I would really look into which insecticides, if you could do an infrared treatment and take care of them, but I don't know that without doing some research. But that has been brought up in the last year. I've heard about it, I've read about it and been told about it by several. And I'm thinking on Extreme Ag, we've had some questions come in from some of the members as well.
We need to get FMC to build them, man. We can get them built.
And that's what I like. If y'all have any questions, please ask them. You know, if we don't get through these slides, I don't care. We're here for y'all. If we can help you, that's what we want to talk about. What can my soils do? I don't think we honestly know the answer to that. The reason I say that, with the humics and the biologicals that we're working with now, we're seeing marginal soils produce yields that we never in our lifetime thought we would see come off those farms. I don't think there's a person in this room that can't say those areas on their farm that they've farmed all their life, that they've seen some yields in those areas that's just been just plumb astounding. It's excellent. So the potential's there. Now what we gotta do is identify that area, figure out what we've done in that area, and how can we get it across that whole field. That's where we make money at. Maybe on that pest management, we got a corner like you're gonna see in the yield map here before long. Let the deer eat up. Why am I even planting and everything? I know the deer's gonna eat that corner every time. I'd be a whole lot better off maybe in on and bush hogging. But I like to say I plant so many acres. That's all I can come up with. And I really don't. I'd rather plant less and make more. So here's 70,000 harvested plants. This is on our driveway. We had first time it had soybeans on it. We planted it, and it just wasn't good conditions when we planted, but we got some real wet weather after that. Water stood on it in places that we normally would not see on this field, and it did. My daughter, she said, we wanted to replant it, but we kept getting rain, and you couldn't get it planted in the right window. And I said, well, if I work late and leave early, I won't have to see it. So that was my way of dealing with it. I'd leave before the sunlight and come home after dark, and the field looked better than the headlights, and like that. So she wanted to keep it, and I said, well, if you're at NC State, you're wanting to farm, and you need to learn happiness and failure. So I'm the one that got to eat crow. That farm, there's 30 acres in that one field. It had a 98 or 99 bushel average. There ain't no way I could have replanted it and made it come out on that. It ain't possible. But they was places, they was 5 foot skips, and things compensated that much. So it's amazing what a soybean plant can do. What do you think, Chad?
It's amazing, you told me you're gonna be planting, oh no, I'd run with that. That's where we have our best at. We do a lot of trial with from 80,000, like the guy was saying, from 80,000, 100,000, 120 to 140. And usually every trial we do, and we double that up with 2, 4, and 6 ton of chicken litter as well, which we know is probably most of the time a no-no on, let's put 6 ton of chicken litter on bean crop and see what happens. So, but we've done that multiple times in the 2, 4, and 6, we hadn't seen anything. This is a field, a farm that the fertility's up pretty good, you know. So we don't see much on that other than, like I said, get some plant height, and we'll get them lodged down most time, which is what we should see. On the 80 to 140, we'll see, most time it's within a bushel. It's within a bushel. But I base all that on, look at what the weather is behind it. If you leave it out here today and say, we're gonna plant all 80,000 plants, we're gonna drop 100,000 or 90,000, and we're gonna end up with a solid 80 behind it. And you don't look at the weather behind it, we get one of them big rains, it ain't gonna look good. You're gonna be like Kevin, you're gonna be down about 50,000. So, you gotta take it with a grain of salt and look at the weather behind it, look at the plant conditions, look at what you're going into. These darn slugs, I ain't got that. So, I mean, that's a whole new environment, but that's where we like to land. If we land in that area, I'd save a bunch of money there with seeds, and I know, I ain't what we need to talk about with Jeff, Jeff, he's easy. But, some of my best salesmen and everything else is the people like him that tell you the truth. That's all I want to know is we want to know the truth. So it ain't for every acre. It sure ain't for the double crop acre. Cause I've tried it on that don't work as well either. But it is for ed.
The one thing that we've done, we talked earlier about the fertilizer and that placement, how critical it is. So we're on 20-inch centers. And the reason we're on 20-inch centers with soybeans instead of 15s is the 20-inch 40-foot planter was cheaper to buy than a 15-inch planter. Only reason. And we did the math. It was a yield gain on the 15 over the 20, but by the life of the planter, I was going to break even. I said, well, I didn't have no extra money to break even. And this is a lot of farm, y'all may be different. But we're planting corn and beans at the exact same time, so we can't use the same planter. We don't have that luxury. But by getting that fertilizer placed right, we've replicated this so many years now. That is 27 main stem fruiting nodes on a 36-inch tall plant. That's 24 main stem fruiting nodes. I can't tell you how many times we've been able to stack where the pods touch each other on your main stem fruiting nodes. That is big. That is big, people. You get in these dry land environments and you get stressed and you get 20 main stem fruiting nodes, 18 to 22, and you're gonna be cutting some really good beans if you can get some grain-filled weather to fill that grain. And they're like that. We'll have our field days. It amazes me. We'll have group 3s through 6s there, all in varieties. And I'd say 75% of the growers there are going to pick the biggest, prettiest, thickest beans for the good winter, and they'll be wrong every time. Now, I'll tell you, I can't tell you exactly which one's going to win it, but I can tell you which ones ain't. When they get up there like that right there, then they get leaning and falling all tangled up. They ain't as good as you think they are. So when do we need all this fertility? Chad?
I ain't got a clue.
That's amazing. Go.
It's, you know, for the last 5 years, I've been trying to keep my potash level from falling when I get to the end. You know, I'm R1, I'm looking good. I'm R2, I'm looking good, I'm hanging in there, I'm foliar fever, I got it by the tail. R3, I'm plateauing pretty good, and I can see it coming. R4, she's going in the tank. So I'm damn posting, and I'm like, man, I just can't, I don't know how to get to the end of this thing, you know, and I'm trying to maintain let's just talk about tissue levels for just a minute, you know, and I'm gonna maintain a 2.2, 2.3, 2.5, you know, 2.8. Just see what our yield goal is, what we can maintain. I'm down there at 2.2 or 2.3, and I'm trying to maintain others. And he brought something to me, you know, when you got the pod load that you want to have, it's going to be really hard to keep it from falling in certain aspects. You may end up at that 1.8 range, 1.9, 2.0, you know, lower than you want to go, but you got to look at the loads you got. We got a 40, 50 bushel crop, and we got that. We didn't have enough out there for sure. We got a 100 bushel crop, and we maintained that. We did pretty darn good. So take a lot of those numbers. I know we hadn't talked about tissue sampling, but when you start tissue sampling, make sure you use your own field. Don't use your neighbor's field as a comparison. Especially in corn, if you're going to plant 32, 34,000, somebody else planting 26, 28,000, y'all compare your tissue samples. It's an appetite for destruction. But you know, just a few of those numbers that we look at, as he's going to talk about the P levels and sulfur levels, and you know, some things that we can address to help pick that up and maintain those pods.
So what drove me to putting so close to the road is, you know, there's such a small area that soybean root really uses of your soil. And you got so much out here in the road levels it's not using, in my situation, with 20-inch rows. And quite honestly, I couldn't afford to buy the fertilizer it would take to keep these levels to meet them demands like that. So I wanted to place it, put more right where I needed it, and not worry about it out in the middle. I can't afford to do that right now. And if you notice, right in here is when it hits. But if you're going to do any foliars, it's obvious you want to do it just before. And those foliars, it's a mixed bag of results. Which one puts money on the table? We're going to show you a situation where it paid dramatically, but it's when you would have thought it would not have. Other times it's hard to tell, but we'll show you. With this situation, we had drip irrigation on this farm, so we was able to inject it into drip to try to meet these demands. And I'm gonna be very open and honest. We pretty much had an open budget, so as long as we didn't blow the research account for Dr. Poston, we was good. The good thing was when he used everything up on my farm, he had another farm that hadn't used it, so he pulled some money out of it when he seen where we was at. So So that was pretty cool when he said, I want to do this here, and I was like, okay, but that's what we need to do. We need to let somebody else pay the bill and learn it, and then if we can make it pay on our farm, we will. But you can see right there how much feed it takes. I mean, that's R6. It's still needing fertilizer right there. Needing quite a bit. Your range that you like to be in for 100 plus bushel beans, 150 bushel beans, this is kind of the goals you want to be in that range. And I ain't got it figured out yet, I'll just tell you. It ain't easy. I have seen some tissue samples where they maintain the 3% K level at R5, R6. The only time I've done it is when we had done a foliar application and I don't think they got washed good. Is when I seen it. I mean, I ain't gonna tell you something I can't prove. But you can see how it's mobilizing, it's moving from the plant into the seed. That's another theory that I've thought about, and several of us have thought about, is this seed, is the nutrients leaving the plant into the seed, so the plant itself still got it, but it's in seed form and it's not in the tissues. That's a good thought. I can't prove that either way. This is, everybody's probably seen this, it's Dr. Flannery. This is some of the stuff he put out there, and that's what Dr. Poston based his recommendations off of to us. How are y'all? Y'all need a break or anything? Y'all good? You want a break? Good? So this is what they claim, 548 pounds of nitrogen per acre, 136, phosphorus 344. I will tell you, we've had the opportunity to do a lot of phosphorus research with Extreme Ag. And my gut feeling is it was snake oil. Agritech has got a product called NutriCharge. It goes in it goes in with your phosphorus fertilizer. And the rate is based on the amount of fertilizer that you're putting out. We used it in corn this year, did a lot of research, about 400 acres worth of plots with them. And it never failed. It had a very positive yield influence. I do not know the cost of it per acre, but we're going to be trying it on soybeans. And I'm really concerned with hopes that I can use that to make more phosphorus in my soils available to the plant. And that's basically what it does in corn. But it was pretty darn impressive. Dr. Heininger down at NC State, he had it in all his plots all across North Carolina. But we need phosphorus. That's one of our limiting factors. And that product paid. I don't know. Did y'all use it on soybeans or did you use it at all, Chad?
I didn't get a chance to use it on this year. I didn't get a chance to use it. I'm lined up to do some tests this year.
Well, they come in late and that kind of made it frustrating. It's kind of gives you the illustrations of, where it's at, how many days into the seed, how much it's still taking up. That's pretty interesting when you look at those numbers like that.
This is what we was talking about earlier when you talking about don't give up. And on the backside, I know, like I said, I'm the world's worst at getting tired on the tail end. I'm gonna give out, we done, like I said, we done all the same way. We done got a wheat crop out, done planted beans and everything else, and we're all done work our tail off all year long, and we're just ready to go to the beach or something. Just let me sit down a minute, watch a ball game or something. But this is a point of taking it to tail end. Don't give up, because we're still packing it in. And I wonder, I'm gonna do a study this year, personal deal, is I wonder if I ain't pouring it to it earlier in the year, and I want to do all these foliar apps or whatever on a certain amount of acres, I myself have on our farm, I have around 100 acres a year that I don't have a budget on, that we test on our farm. I've been blessed, like I said, with my father and my first cousin that don't give me a bunch of crap over doing it, and that's what we test on. It's just like any business that has R&D, that's our research and development. If we're not moving forward, we're moving backwards. So we test each stuff, anybody got an idea, I mean, it's wide open testing. So we'll do this, and I think that, and it's a lot of my applications, I think I'm pushing it so hard early, and I'm just missing the windows in the vegetative stage when I feel like it's good for me to push it because it works good and I'm feeling like it, and maybe I should be on the tail end pouring the coals to it instead of front end. We know how many days it takes to get stuff into a plant, and when you figure that out about the daylight of what it takes to get that time into the plant, we just gotta get in front of the window. You know, it's like chasing the markets. You know, anytime you look at the markets, you're behind the 8 ball. So you gotta get in front of it. Anything you're doing, you gotta get in front of it.
When it comes to market, whatever I do, y'all do the opposite of me very well.
Amen.
I used to thought I was good at marketing. So, kind of goes more into, you know, it's just amazing. You gotta have it, you gotta meet that demand. So look right here, you get, it ain't got it, ain't needing it as bad this late, but it's done moved it into the seed. This is probably why, in my opinion, and as to what Chad's talking about, and we're gonna be showing you here shortly, when you get in that real late situation of how a foliar can influence yield in a late situation, if you have a deficiency. Go to these. So, I was telling you about, so this is, I give you the farmer analogy. It's just a small area that the soybean plant uses in soil. Well, Dr. Poston with a PhD, he got specific. It's 3% of your soil. That's what those plants are utilizing. So, when you're just broadcasting your fertilizer out there, I ain't telling you you're doing it wrong, by no means, because if you've been successful, it's great. And I commend you for it. And it does. It helps with your small grain crop. It helps with your rotation. You got to do what works. But with today's prices, and as you get older, you learn you're kind of planting for that one crop. And then if something happens to me, my kids can figure out next year about that one, you know, the next one. But, plant tissue analysis. How many in here do tissue samples? Got a few. Are y'all looking for something to improve that current year with it?
I'm looking for all green lines.
Yeah, I think we all. The trouble is, what do them green lines mean?
I don't know.
What was that you were based on?
Don't call them because they don't know either.
No, don't ask them, because they can't tell you.
Yeah, well, they tell you
It's
the
really
same
important
thing.
that you build your own spreadsheets. And I used to try to correct, I'd see those tissue levels and I'd try to correct. And what I'd done was, I created a lot of invoices for Miss Cindy to have to enter into the computer. And I created a lot of expense. Didn't make a damn thing. Didn't do nothing. I was reacting. It didn't. It was foolish. I felt good. Thought I was doing something. So then, I realized, well, the healthiest people are the ones that stay in shape and don't get sick. So why do I want to wait till my plant's sick to try to start helping it? So I changed the way I looked at my tissue samples. My tissue samples for this year is my roadmap to next year. Now, when you do them tissue samples, be specific. It's kind of like praying. Don't pray for rain, pray for a ½ inch of rain. Pray for rain, you might get 8 inches and a flood. So you got to be specific. So we started doing, several years back, we would put all the previous year's tissue samples in a spreadsheet, and honest to goodness, it stays in my truck. Chad's got one that stays in his truck. It's with me all through the growing season. very important, when you send those tissue samples off, it's gonna have a sample ID with it, it's gonna have a growth stage. I highly encourage you to put your growth stages and the growth stage and your date's gonna be on it, so you got a date. But that growth stage, or GDUs, however you do it, corn, soybeans, whatever, weed on your feed stage, put that in your sample ID. That is the only consistent you get. When you get those reports back, that sample ID is a consistent. So if you've ever had opportunity to listen to Dr. Cole speak about farm finance, farm lending, is control the controllables. Well, that is a controllable. That is the only controllable you have on a tissue sample outside of pulling that sample correctly. You pull it correctly, that's a controllable. The second thing, you document it correctly. So you put that growth stage in there. Why am I saying that? A year later, when you look at that sample, and you've just got the field number on it, and the date, well, Chad, was it R1 or was it R5, or was that 1,400 GDUs or 1,800? Can you remember?
I know exactly what you're talking about. I got a pile of them all running
So,
together.
it's pretty numbers, but if you can't use them, they're useless. And that sample ID is your consistent. That's what's consistent. So make you an acronym, make you a chart, however you gotta do it, and use it. Now, you've got last year's samples. You look back over the last 3 or 4 year samples, and you know that at R2, you're deficient in boron. You know you're deficient in zinc every year. So instead of waiting to R2 to do something, let's get out there at V16 or R1. And let's do something then. Get it in that plant before it tanks. Now here's the bad part. You do that, then you find out what your other limiting factor is, and you gotta do something different for next year. But you know what to correct, and you end up building a program and you figure out what micro pack you need, or what potassium source you need. Maybe it's a humic, fulvic, sugar, something that actually stops that problem and keeps that plant thriving. That is the beauty of tissue samples. It's really hard to take one and react to it, because here's the problem. I pull that sample, we pull every Tuesday at 10 a.m. That's when our samples are started pulling, and she tries to be done by 1 o'clock, Cindy, sometimes 3 o'clock, depends on how big the crop is, how things are going, how many she's having to pull. And so that's Tuesday. It's very fortunate if I've got the results by Thursday or Friday. So I'm already a week into whatever the problem was. So you see where I'm going with this? You're just in a total reaction the whole time instead of getting out and being defensive. You got to get in front of this stuff. Remember, that well-conditioned athlete was practicing. He was building his muscles. He was getting ready. Obviously, I've not been doing much exercise, but that's the way you need to look at it.
And also, if you think about it, when you get your sample back, and if it's a paper sample or a computer sample, however you got it, if you think about it, jot down the weather, what rain you got. If you got any rain, how much you got. Just kind of jot it down. You don't have to be specific, because if you look and you're on a dry spell and you pull a sample Tuesday and it ain't rained 2 more Tuesdays, it ain't moving. It ain't going nowhere. So it's time that you're spinning your wheels. And the reason I know that is I had some wheat in front of the house, 20 acres, testing in front of the house. Do not test stuff in front of your house. When it goes bad, you look at it all year. And we had was low in boron and mag. Come out of dormancy, I'm gonna touch it with some boron, I'm gonna touch it with some mag. Wait 10 days, pull me a sample, same place. So I ain't all like that, I got some more there. I'm gonna touch it again. So I touched it again. You know what happened? We got a warm spell, we got a shower, a warm spell, it sucked it up, I killed the whole field. I'm talking about, I killed it, I ain't lying, I killed it with boron and mag, that's no joke. I killed the grass and the ditch, I killed it all. Neighbor said, man, you had some Roundup residual in your tank, didn't you? Sprayed your weed? Yep, sure did. I was darn sure wasn't gonna tell him what I'd done. So that was the lesson I learned. You know, just pay attention, just think about the weather when you're pulling these samples, because it means a lot on what's moving and what ain't moving, because it just, you know, you'll lose some time and then you'll start chasing your tail and then nothing moved and you're mad at the co-op for selling you the stuff, or nutrient, you're mad at everybody because you done spent money and ain't nothing moving. I'm making the same thing. So just just any notes you got, just keep, you know, I know it's bad, but just keep as good a notes as you can, and it'll help enlighten you on some other stuff.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that, because if it's raining, we won't take samples that day. We'll just postpone it. If it's cloudy and plants, you know, we want to have similar sunlight, similar conditions when we take them every day.
As similar as possible. Yep.
Yeah, ain't gonna be exact, but something close. And you know, you can manage a crop with tissue samples. So it's 1,007 miles away from our farm to our research plots out in Sioux Falls. And when Ryan and Darren Hefty come to us, and they said, we want y'all to grow crops on our farm for the field day, because when you speak, one of the biggest complaints we get is, yeah, you can do that in North Carolina, you can do it in Alabama, you can do it in Georgia, you can do it in Virginia. Do it in Arkansas, but you can't do it in South Dakota. That don't work. And I can't disagree with them. I mean, I can't. But when we started talking earlier, we made a comment that if there's probably every one of y'all can come to our farm and find something that we're doing that is second nature to you that we've never seen, that could be a game changer to us. So when we go to South Dakota, first thing I seen was an 8 pH to 9, 8 to 9 was average pH. And the organic matter in topsoils is something I've never seen soil samples like that, even in the blacklands. Well, we got more organic matter down there, but it was just, I was like, man, this is pretty cool stuff. But then I got thinking, I remember back to the old tobacco days. I said, well, I know what I'm gonna do first. So I called an agronomist up, Glenn, that was assigned to us. And I said, Glenn, I was growing soybeans that year. I said, Glenn, I want you to put 200 pounds of ammonium sulfate in an 8-inch band 30 days before planting. He said, Kevin, did they not tell you you're on the soybean side, you're not on the corn side? I said, yes, sir, they did, but that's what I want to do. We don't do that up here, Kevin. I said, I understand, Glenn, but y'all are paying me to do this, you're buying the inputs, you said I had unlimited budget, so spend the money.
I mean, it's the best thing ever, y'all. If y'all ever get a chance to do it, this is the best thing ever.
So,
I mean, Glenn do anything.
So he calls me about a week later and he says, okay, what in the heck are you and David talking about? What are y'all doing different? I said, what are you talking about? Well, he told me to do nearly the exact same thing with ammonium sulfate that you did. What are y'all thinking? I said, well, Glenn, to be honest with you, I said, my goal is I want to drive that pH down to about 6.5 during the growing season of that plant. There's no way I can change that deep soil profile that y'all got. You've got a 23 CEC, so there's no way I can change all that. But if I can drive that down, I think I can break y'all's yield goal. Said, you said y'all never been out of 70 bushels up there. He said, yeah, that's right. So we done it, we managed it by the tissue samples and the weather. And we had to call them each week, tell them what we wanted done, what Chad liked about. Wednesday, we had to have the order in, and then we had to have the product shipped there. It was aggravating. But anyhow, first year, we was, what was it, 86, 90 bushels, somewhere like that. And but we had them take the soil samples and tissue samples at the same time. And sure enough, we pulled that 8.3 to 9 pH down into that 6.5, I think 6.4 was as low as we ever got it. And then towards the end of the season, it started going right back up to 8. But what it done, it opened up all that good minerals in them soils to to the plants, because we had a more balanced pH. So it ain't that complicated, but they are great farmers, but they knew they had high pH and you just gotta deal with it.
Yeah, they called me, and they was talking about, they send, this is no joke, they send you a soil sample, and then they say, all right, we're gonna plant your crop, and this is what it is, and you never see the crop. I mean, you don't see it till you show up like everybody else.
Yeah.
They called me, and sent me a soil sample, and he said, so what you gonna do? And I said, what's your plan? He said, well, we're gonna put, well, this is your soil sample, and then we put like 5,000 gallons of liquid on it, manure.
Yeah, manure.
They put like 5,000 gallons, I said, he said, what you gonna do? I said, nothing. I don't do nothing. I ain't never working on dirt like this. I'm good right here. I said, I'll take off right there with it. So it's definitely eye-opening. It's an experience. If y'all get a chance to go do that, it's some good work being done up there.
That's a good challenge. You know, if you guys has got friends, that are a ways off, let your friend and y'all swap out. Y'all manage a crop on each other's farm.
Just one field.
Just, yeah, I ain't talking about, I mean, just take 10 acres or 15 acres or something, and let each one of you, and see what the other person sees that you didn't see. I guarantee you it'll surprise you. Cause every one of you guys has got stuff that your dad's taught you, or your mom's, or someone that you cross paths with, that you think everybody else does it, and Chad or I hadn't seen it yet. Be open-minded.
About 73.
So, 2017, this is what I talked about. Yes, everything is acronymed out. We know the exact location in the field by acronyms. We know the exact growth stages all the way through. I typically don't start taking tissue samples in soybeans until beginning of bloom. Reason for that is I've done it so many years before, taking whole plant samples, and honestly, we've been short of help. And that's been the biggest issue. It's just hard to get it all done, because you know you're cutting wheat, you're planting double crop beans, and you're spraying corn, probably top dressing corn. You just can't do so much. But that's the exact yield and the exact areas where the tissue samples were taken. This is a big area I see that's a problem, is people will take tissue samples, and when they get those tissue samples, they look at the field average. That tissue sample is not the field average. That tissue sample is an area within that field. You need your yield data to come from the exact same area of that field that your tissue samples are taken, or else you're just chasing your tail. But you can see, just like Dr. Poston's and Dr. Flannery's information, when you get filling in seed towards the end, it tanks. We can hold a pretty good nitrogen number, but that potassium number, it just keeps tanking. Our phosphorus keeps going down. These have been my limiting factors, the phosphorus. That's why I'm curious what that NutriCharge product is going to do for soybeans. It works in corn. Does it work in soybeans? I don't know. We're also signed a contract to do soybean research for Pivot Bio this year with their Pivot Bio product. It's we've done it in corn since they first introduced it. First couple of years it didn't work in corn for us. We couldn't see no response. They switched products around. We did several different experimental products for them. And then we've got 2 years now of consistent yield improvements over by about 10 bushels, but we're seeing our biggest yield with it on reduced nitrogen. And I honestly did not think I would see that, but that's just what the numbers are. But, yes, sir.
How much are you reducing your nitrogen?
On the plots we did for them on the corn, we dropped it back 15 gallons. We was putting out 45, dropped it back to 30 on top dress.
So that'd be 40 pounds, 35.
That's 24%. 24%. We use a product called 24S. It is a 6.5 pH, 3% sulfur, 24% nitrogen. And the 6.5 pH is a little more gentler than the 28S. And we kind of It just works good for us. We pick it up at the port at Wilmington. Downside was, last load we got last year, July, was, what was this, $170 a ton, FOB port. And yesterday it was $600. But I worked on budget numbers this morning in the room, and it really surprised me, 70 bushel beans versus 180 bushel corn. The beans only had corn by $4.
He's looking to do some stuff in wheat as well.
Do what, sir?
I think they're gonna do some stuff in wheat with 55.
Yes. We grow wheat, but we have to sell out for milling quality. If we could sell feed wheat, it'd be great. But that milling quality, you get to the mill and you know you got a good product, and then you get rejected. And the following number, IDK, I even went one day, they didn't know who it was. And I said, can y'all show me how y'all grade this? Because we had certified graders, and it wasn't matched. Done had like 20 loads rejected. Got down there, went in there, and oh boy, he was sampling an IDK. It said on the contract it had to come from a 100 gram sample, 100 grams. So he took his 1,000 gram cup, dumped it in there, and he started counting. I said, sir, what are you doing? He says, oh, so these are fragments of insects. Just put them over there. Okay, all right, he kept going. I said, well, I thought the contract stated you had to do the insect damage from a 100 gram sample. Well, I don't care what that contract says, this is the way we do it. I don't know. He didn't know I was the owner of the grain company. It was a pretty large contract. I said, I named his boss man, the head man. I said, I give him a call if you don't mind. He says, well, what's on the board? I said, tell him that Kevin Matthews is here, and being it don't matter what that contract says, we're out. We ain't delivering this 150,000 bushels a week. You can't do that, you got a contract. I said, wait a minute, you just said that contract didn't mean nothing. So I said, when it's convenient for you, it's good, but if it's convenient for me, it's bad. So that's, I don't know, I just like feeding wheat. I can't grow good wheat like you guys can. We can grow bushels, we just can't get the good quality every year. Get out, you guys are here, you're learning. This is the Hefty crowd, Brian Darren Hefty. This guy right here, Rob Fritz, I don't know how to describe him other than just brilliant. He's a behind the scenes chemist, guru, agronomist. What is he, Chad?
Yeah, all of those.
He is brilliant. He's so far, and he can relate it. I mean, he can get it down to where I can understand what he's talking about. But very good person to have in your toolbox. Glenn Hurst right here is an agronomist. That man right there plants 700 seed corn plots by himself a year. He plants them and he harvests them himself. I don't see how he does it. He works the most hours than anybody I know. But he has got unreal amounts of knowledge and data. But that was at the farm where you'll see these yields at. You see, it's loading them up pretty good. And that was what we looked like kind of a few weeks ago. The storm, Dr. Poston was there. That's when he expanded the budget, wanted to put more fertility on there. Very happy. He just left the place down in Georgia, and he was very happy with the numbers this had versus the one down in Georgia. And so this is kind of how all the plots are set out. So they're pretty large areas. It's not just a strip plot, you know. You want to see what you can do. This is just a low area in the field that makes it kind of tough. But this is what the soil says. That's what the NRCS says we're supposed to produce on that land. 107.44, and the APH is 300, and the APH is over 100 on soybeans. So if you work hard at it, you can make it turn around. But water makes a big difference. There's the variability in the field. Same thing you guys deal with. Y'all soil changes just like that, I would think. Kind of the yield map. with the different varieties and how they respond, different fertility treatments in there. And, but it really, that storm in 2017, it just slapped us right in the face. It's kind of like Chad, we desiccated beans, they was ready to harvest, and it wasn't pretty. You can see, we kind of compiled everything just for the year. We had a problem here, our pH was a little bit low in 2017, and y'all seen the 2021 soil sample, we're up to about a 6-7 average on pH. So we had to work at it. Organic matter, when I first started farming that land, it was around 1%, and we're up close to 3%. That's just good no-till and cover crops and growing big crops on with irrigation. Those were the issues in 2017 that we focused on. And these ratios is very important to understand. Your phosphorus and zinc, if it was too low, it was causing problems, but at the end of the day, our calcium and mag was a lot of the problems. And I felt like, I've learned over the years, if I can correct this one first, then I can go to the others. And this is right in here when I'm talking about this analysis. At 7-1, I used to think I needed to be 5-1 on calcium and mag, and I've actually, I'm questioning whether I need to be higher than that now. I'm seeing really, really good yielding areas in the field that's actually got a higher number than that. So I'm starting to wonder, maybe, maybe I need to be more. I don't know. But that's, when I look at yields, I look at the worst part of the field and I look at the best part of the field, and then I look at the soil samples to try to see what's there. If I got tissue samples, then I try to find that. It's a whole lot easier to improve your average correcting the bad areas. That's the easiest way to bring your average up. So, you kind of, this is something Dr. Poston likes putting in. Again, it's a little bit redundant, but the poultry litter is something we do use a lot on our farms. And I do like it because the calcium, we're layer litter. The calcium helps, and it's also, it helps build our lime and pH up. A lot of good benefits. We got tremendous amounts of poultry houses. Right here, if you go right back to that in South Dakota, he was over here. Right there, that between 8 and 9, mostly about 8.5. And then we dropped it right down into this. Look at all those nutrients we got available. And the sad part is every one of us has seen this for years. When I was a young kid, I seen that right there, and it didn't sink into me how easy it is to manage it. So, managing that pH is a big deal. It's a long-term plan. What's y'all's pH around here? What's normal? What? About 6. I guess. If we don't lime, ours get down to low 5s. It'll get down there. Do y'all use a domatic lime or a calcitic lime? What do y'all use? Domatic. Is that, are you high in mag, or is your soils not only high in mag? They're low in mag, that works good. So we're high in mag, but our best lime source, our closest lime source is right there on the foothills, right in the mountains there at Austinville. And that's cheap domatic lime, but we don't need domatic lime. We go get ours at South Carolina at Myrtle Beach.
Source out of Tennessee that we pull it from, and it looks like clay sand.
Yep.
Acts like clay sand, it's a byproduct.
Okay.
It looks just like clay sand. So,
Now, there's a lot of people using wood ash around the home too. They're getting from different plants. That's a good lime source as well. What are y'all, Chad, down there? You're in that limestone
We're
county.
city, I can't get him down my line, it's up in Tennessee. It'd be a 80, 90 mile pool.
Now, are you high mag?
Low mag.
You're low mag too?
you'd be surprised, it's not as expensive as you think.
I need to check into that, thank you.
That's important, network, find out, just, that's,
Where'd you say it's from, Cookville?
It's down there somewhere. It's
Yeah,
not-
I'll get that number.
Let's see if I can find it.
and this is why, I mean, that's, you know, it controls everything. So, this is what went on that farm, you've seen the yields, that's 118 bushel beans on that farm. Not bad. You can see, it's mostly dependent on irrigation, there wasn't that much rainfall there. This is hurricane event. There's the plant date. We could not irrigate right here due to the river being so muddy, we just couldn't pump out of it. Then we got wet right here, and that gets dangerous because I know y'all probably don't have it, but my neighbor will get rain and we won't, and then the river's muddy and then I can't pump and I'm dry. That's not a good feeling. Know you got irrigation, you can't use it on stuff.
And that's just because of the drip tape?
Yep, on filter, I can't filter the water out. So it is. Our center pivot's actually on the pond, so it's never an issue there. You can see, we got 7 inches. That was when we desiccated the soybeans. That ain't good. So y'all need to know what not to do. Do not do that. Thank y'all for. The bad thing was this storm right here. We knew about, it's like 4 days ahead of time that we was gonna get hit with it. It formed down in the Gulf and it come out of the harness, hit the Appalachian Mountains and just sat there. And that's not a good situation. So you try to plan, but you can't do everything. You know, we got 100, I see TDUs there. You see, right here, we had good TDUs, so more than likely we had good solar radiation. This is a nice thing, you hit get above 95. But here's the key. If you're gonna grow good yielding soybeans, when you go into R1, R4, you got to have that solar radiation. You gotta have it. That's, you can't buy it, it's free. And if you don't get it, it ain't no fun. 2019, we was just about negative all during reproduction. You could tell it in the crop. Actually, I believe that's 2020. See, cloud. If y'all don't track solar radiation, it's pretty cool because you can take, we've actually been able to track it and plug in all the maturities to see. I don't, no, it ain't in here. I wish I put that slide in here. So I got one that shows the actual yields of the test plots. And it lines the varieties up. And you can, it's a direct correlation when that bean went into bloom and when it hit, if it had positive, the ones with the most solar radiation was always the highest yielding blocks. And that's pretty neat, and that's even with the determinate beans as well, we've seen that. But you can see it mashed them down, they weren't real pretty seed. I had pictures of the seed in there, but I took them out, it was ugly. But, so, again, this was 2018, you can see the indeterminates, out yielded determinants by long shot, as they do they have every year in our area. Dr. Poston wanted these at 140,000. That's, in my opinion, too thick for that type of management. And I'll show you what we've done to take care of that. Just kind of gets into money-wise. But this is 2021. This is I like this. Chad and I talked about it earlier in the room. We normally have a levo on this farm because we do have sudden death. And Pioneer provides all the seed, so we do not treat the seed. Pioneer has it treated. And I I started getting sudden death out here in these large acre plots. So there's 6 acres in it, and we go in and we pick 3 continuous acres minimum out of it. Basically, you swaths however they match out with 35-foot head, and it's over 3 acres. That's what we check. These were all planted at 125,000. All this plot seed I had Lego in. This here was no Lego. I did not know it. Jim does the soybean planting, I plant the corn. He's very good. Look at the final harvest population. I told you the 140 was too much. We've learned that. I showed you 2017, 2018 data. We're 2022 now. 2021, we've lowered that population down. Now, when I get right in here, at 105 population, I'm at 135,000, I'm at 135 bushel acres. That's pretty good news. Now, this is a new variety right here. Well, no, it's not. 42896 has been around. The 40, I thought it was 44,821. That's on the top of that plot. The 896 that's a couple years old, I believe. But this was really depressing because when we was looking at all these varieties, I really thought I had a chance because I knew that was in there. But at 117,000, we dropped down and we lost about 35 bushels. And it's just lodged. I mean, they was rank, they was nasty. They was lodged every which way. Now, we didn't spend much on this. Now, you've seen before all that we've done in 2017, all those applications of when the fertilizer was put on. And I'm going to show you a good chart right here. But we didn't spend much on them. These right here, that was pretty much the products that was used, and we didn't do a whole lot. So how does SDI work, subsurface drip irrigation? This is our filter stations. This is where we suck out of the river. This has got a floating pump that sets down in the river about 400 foot away from the pump house. We can put anything we want in these tanks right here and suck it in, and we've also got a computer on that we program on the other side of that trailer actually. And you can see right here, this is out of the creek. We got about 8 inches of water. If y'all guys use river screens, you know how good they work. If you don't use them and you're irrigating, that river screen is an awesome product. It don't pick any sediment out in 8 inches of water at 1,200 gallon minute. Don't pick nothing up. No vortex is off the bottom. It's amazing. I didn't believe it, but it does work. This is how it's injected. This injector, we put this with plow in. And the drip tape, this is a Q-Flex riser. It hooks right into the manifold. The manifold's always lower than the tape. That way all your residue and anything in there will settle in that pipe. Then you can flush it out. Drip tape typically 20 or 30 years. Nebraska, they've got some that's been 35 years in. You do have issues with rodents. They will, a groundhog will give you a reason to go to church on Sunday. And it's usually a muddy mess when it ain't no trouble to find a leak, I'll say that. But then again, our pivots have issues too, so you gotta do maintenance on them. So I showed you that drip tape in the ground. How do you get these products into the plants? So why did Dr. Postman get excited and want to spend all that much extra money in 2017 and 2018 on our farm? When we was doing the tissue sampling, he could see, we had 4 different farms, Chad, he was doing those plots on. Ours was the only drip plot. But what we were seeing was every time we'd inject, we could see the rise in the tissue sample, that same, that within that 7-day period when we pulled samples. So it was very consistent. We couldn't see it on our pivot land, and Chad and I talked about it, and what we're thinking is when we're doing our fertigation with the pivots, we need to be doing our fertigation at 100%. Is that what you think, Chad, when we talk about it?
I think we're overwatering. Does it mean people fertigating? Y'all have much irrigation? Y'all fertigate? A little bit. If you dive into that and you do any of that, we're seeing a better response. You know, we put out anywhere from 4/10 to 1/2 inch of water. We're about 25% irrigated on our farm acreage. When we do our fertigation, we put out, you know, most times 4/10, 5/10, 6/10 of water on every circle. And we would just plug the pump in and make it work on the time frame, and I wouldn't get the same results I could get out of a wide drop or I could get out of another application. I just couldn't make the tissue samples move, and I wouldn't feel like I was getting the same thing done. So I think we're overwatering the thing when we put it in. I think you need to run the pivot as fast as possible without getting the pivot out of whack. You know, if you got a 1/2 mile system, you can't only run them on 100% unless they're really set up nice, because they'll get out of whack on you. But 1/10 of water, 1,500 of water, we're seeing more results out of it if you fertigate with 1,500 of water and then just come back and wash it in. If you can run it across and fertigate, cut it off, and then come back with 4/10 or whatever and kind of push it in, we see better results. It's the same thing on we see that same thing on, we can't put so much water down. You know, you can't put out so much water before it runs off. Or any rain events, you can't give it so much before it runs off. We try irrigating a lot in front of a rain or behind a rain. The only thing to push water deeper into the soil content, and we'll see that with moisture meters and stuff, is a rain event. You know, we can never mimic a rain event, so we can do a better job of pushing water deeper with a rain event, and if we're a little heavy in front of that rain event. You know, kind of, if you get water in a day, you know, most people are like, oh, if it don't rain Friday, I'm going to cut that thing on. Well, most of them ain't going to cut it on Friday for sure. But then if it don't rain on Monday, I'm going to fire up. Well, if you think it's going to rain Monday, you should be firing up on Thursday and Friday and getting that soil kind of.
Are you? Okay.
All right, I've had several questions during the break about the subsurface drip irrigation. And so I'll go a little bit more in detail on that, because we're here for y'all. So we're on 40-inch centers. We're using 28 gallons per minute per acre of water. We're at a depth, the tape depth is between 9 inches and one farm at 13 inches. Where do the sweet spot, what do I like? I like the 11 to 12 inch range. But then again, I like the 9 inch range because it takes less water to get to the top. So what I see a lot of going on, and the produce was just taught me this, we used to grow strawberries too, so I learned some of it then. It's so easy to overwater. It's so easy to overwater. I did it with my pivot for years. When I finally learned how to manage the drip tape, then I applied that to my center pivot, and it made life a whole lot better for me. Disadvantages to drip tape, there's more maintenance there. There's more that you've got to pay attention to. You got to make sure you hire it in, don't take a tractor and ripper and go to that section that's got ripper tape in it. It's time to rip the field for you, like one of our friends in Mount Olive, they done. And we had 50 acres, and before they realized the guy was in the wrong field, it done ripped all the irrigation tape out. That was not a pleasant day in the pickle country. The rodents, you do have issues with rodents. Equipment, everybody's asked me, I've had our 24-row planters, I've had them fall down, and you'd think it was the end of the day, the end of the world, and you knew you was going to have to fix tape. And you know what happens when you do 24-row planter stuff, it's a mess. And that particular time, we actually did purchase some tape. Had one of run tape. To fix the tape, they got quick couplers, you just dig down, expose the tape, snap a quick coupler on, hook your new tape in, run it so far, take your back section out, fix it. Couple minutes, ain't no big deal. It's actually very easy to fix. A lot easier to fix a drip tape than it is a center pivot where somebody's hit it with a sprayer or a combine. Had to get the welding torch out there. But, they've all got good things and they've got bad things against them. Why did we choose subsurface drip over a pivot? Field size. Water source. We got rivers, we got plenty of water. But to run that pivot, our pivot, which is a small pivot, it's a 36 acres under that pivot, a 40-acre field. So I got 4 acres and I ain't getting no water on it. That hurts your field average. But it is generally running about 370 gallons a minute on that span versus 28 gallons a minute per acre on that drip. And I did the math, I think I was covering, don't quote me on it, but it wasn't much over an acre during that minute that pivot was watered down that boom. So the drip's much more efficient. I can get you can't get 100% of the field unless you've got waterways or you've got a road around the field, because when you're plowing it in with that injector right there, but when you're plowing it in with that big Ambrose injector, when you get to the end, your tractor's sticking out, and then you gotta get the ripper back down in the ground and put the tape in, so you're gonna have 20, 30 foot all the way around the field on those headland ends that you're not gonna have drip tape. So I can't tell you it's 100%, but it's probably 95, 98%. Inject and fertilize is where it shines. You use such small amounts, you're putting in the root zone, and the plant availability is amazing. We do no-till out in the Midwest. Most of those guys are 18 inches deep with a drip tape. They're on 60-inch centers, where we're on 40s. Reason for that is their CECs are high enough, they can hold the water. They're more nutrient delivery and just that. What do you say, Chad? That week or so that they hit a real dry spell that they get where they ain't gonna make 250 bushel corn.
It's all about holding capacity, how much you can push through it, can't push through it. I asked my dad about water, how do you know if we overwatered or not? Which thing? He said, well, if you walk out there and it's sticking to your feet, then you probably need to turn it on. I don't think that's the right attitude, but anyway, that's the way my dad was handling irrigation systems, But so it's not, will you ever see it wet to the top?
Yes, sir. Yes,
Is that
sir.
overwatered when you see it wet to the top?
Yes, you're over water. It will, the reason we're on 48 centers, our CECs are anywhere from sand ridges. We got some sand in the river bottom that's a 4, 5 CEC. And talking to the gentleman here earlier during the break, one of the most satisfying things I ever done was pick 200 bushel corn on that 4 CEC. I was more excited about that than I was seeing 400 bushels in other areas of the fields. Because I went right across the ditch where it wasn't irrigated and it cut around 56 bushels. And so when you can take 14 foot deep beach sand and grow 200 bushel corn on it, that's pretty fun. That's pretty fun. That helps that field average a lot. But
how long of a pool can you make?
3,000 feet is, let's see, let me back up. Depends on the drip tape size. The guys out west are doing 3,000 feet.
How much elevation can you have?
I've got land that we're 80 foot elevation change from the beginning to the end. It's 80 foot higher on one end and it's got a 40 foot valley in the middle. It irrigates perfect. Pressure compensated drip.
That's what Kelly was doing up there, wasn't it? He's got a lot of hills and.
Kelly's in western Iowa, Kelly Garrett, and he is the Smoky Mountains or the Appalachian Mountains? Western Iowa is the Appalachian Mountains without the rocks, and they farm. That beats all I ever seen. That is the steepest. He's about an hour from Omaha, Nebraska. She's steep, ain't she, Chad?
Well, I've seen the pictures of it, I hope to get out there in the next week or
They
two.
run all Hilco combines. Hilco's on the combines. They can't run without Hilco. It's, turning something over is just another day. They just laugh about it and go on. Like, you got a 9R with an overtaker behind it, and you flipped it down the hill, and you're laughing about it. And the tractor's all caught up in there. That ain't funny to me.
But we was talking about the elevation, we was somewhere when we was talking about the elevation change, and it was with Netafilm, and he was talking, well, I promise you, you don't have any more hills than what I got. And with pressure compensation, a lot of people will preach it, and I don't, have any, but they preach about the pressure compensation part of it.
Yeah, it works. If you get any type of rise and fall out in your field, you really do need the pressure compensation. As far as pressure on the tape, about on them steep hills, like where we gotta push it up a 80-foot or 100-foot elevation rise, sometimes we'll jack it up on the bottom side, it'll probably be about 26 pounds on that tape. So that what you want, it takes 5 pounds for that emitter to open. And so if you get to the farthest distance away and you've got 6 pounds of pressure, every emitter in that field is irrigating like it's supposed to. Now, they've got some formulas that can tell you how to do all that, but that's the easy way to do it. One thing is they wanted us to use all these soil probes to learn the moisture, and we researched probably 12 different companies. And what I have come to conclusion, no disrespect, is they're neat. They make some pretty graphs. But I can put me a corn row or a soybean row 40 inches off that drip tape in a non-irrigated environment. And when that plant starts showing me stress, I know I need to step up my game out in the field. And we sat in a meeting in Dallas, and they compared our farm, and please don't take it as I'm boasting on this, but they flew us in there, and they wanted to know how I was managing my soil moisture probes so much better than everybody else in the United States, and ones in Israel that was using it, and some down in South Africa, I believe where it was. And I couldn't figure out where they was going with it, and so they thought that the brand that I was using was so much better than everybody else's. Then they logged in to see how many times I had logged into that. It tracked how many times I had checked it. And I kind of got told them because I hadn't checked it very many times. And they wanted to know, so how did you manage it that good? What are you reading on these soil probes? And I told them about planting the row 40 inches off, and if it got me stressed, I just started irrigating. I just kept it simple because I couldn't believe my soil probes. What they were saying, I couldn't find any. Observance was the most accurate of all of them I ever used, and they went out of business. So I have not used the John Deere probes. I have been told they're very good. But honestly, with our soil types and like what you guys have got, unless you got a soil probe, every soil type in the field, you don't know what's going on. So you kind of got to keep it as simple as you can. Is there any other questions about the drip tape? Good deal. If you have any, just let me know after that and go back, talk to you one-on-one. Get on. Let's see here. So, the fertigation side, you can influence the plant with fertigation. This is the program Dr. Poston had. All the products, you see the 0023 potassium acetate. The 06020 was actually, we melted down some 0060. We had that, I forget what all we added in, but with several components we melted down. Wouldn't recommend that. That was no fun. You had to go there and keep it stirred as it's injecting it. And, got that just was, that ain't fun, is it?
And they use hot water, and you can't keep the water hot, you can't keep the, yes, it's a lot of problem.
I wouldn't recommend it. But they tracked every nutrient in there that year. And this is where we was talking about, I'm afraid to hit the corner because it keeps going. All right, yeah. That's why I was afraid to hit the corner. But what happens is, they really wanted to check each seed. They had never, through the pivots, they was unable to replicate this, because this was on 4 different farmers. My gosh. Chad, you need to do better with that computer, right?
And you put me on that computer, think wrong, think wrong, it's gonna be bad.
But you can see when we're irrigating it, no matter what nutrient it is, we're getting it up into that plant. And we cannot replicate this with our pivots, and that's been a challenge for us. And we're thinking that's what Chad was saying, we're just putting way too much water out there. Now you look at all that. Is that not a boatload somebody wants you to do to acre of soybeans? Right over here. Right in here on this, the field day was, right here on the 12th. I was bound and determined I was doing nothing else. I was done. That's when Dr. Poston come back and he's like, no, you need to do all this. I mean, 16 gallons, that's $5 a gallon. You can't make no money doing that. Now, we did all right, because we got paid to do it. But, you know, I ain't gonna do it out there on my regular acres. But they wanted to see, and I commend them on it, because whether it's Pioneer, AgriGold, or who it is, they need to be doing the research on our products to advise us on what we can do to make money. We can't risk spending this kind of, there's no way I could do this on my farm and spend that kind of money, knowing that I had to make 150 bushels acre to make a profit. I can't afford to do that. Y'all can't afford to do that. So, the seed company's doing it, I commend them for doing it, that way they can weed it out. If this works, it does, if it don't, you need to know it. So you can see the products, that's the 2.91721 Yield Plus that I used. And on that particular one, we went to 15 gallons, and that was put down at planting, 2 by 2. The 31818, that was all the fertigation. That's what was used during fertigation. All the boron products was actually put on the foliar. It was not put on through the drip. Double O23 is just potassium acetate. Some of that was put in through the drip, and a little bit was put on foliar. Double O10 is actually double O60 melted down. That's the analysis. That was as good as we could get it where it stayed full and stayed in suspension. And it was actually melted with a heat hot mix. That's what I was trying to think of. It had, double O60 was hot mixed at the fertilized plant. You can see that was Fraxel then, we're using Revitec now. We're seeing a couple bushel yield bump on the Revitec versus Fraxel. We actually could take Approach Prima and use an off-label rate and beat the Fraxel every time and save about $2 an acre doing it. But I didn't say that. Labels allow. But but anyway, we gotta make money too. That's total amounts brought up, that's a lot. I talked to you about the river getting bad and, it was dirty, we couldn't irrigate, and that created a problem because everybody got rain, but right there where we was at, we needed to be running, and, timely harvest. We're pretty certain it cost 10 to 20 bushels an acre, and it probably was more than that, because we opened the field up before the hurricane. And then, we got rained out actually trying to do the plots, so we never could get one harvested. And that was the year that we seen the 200 plus bushel yields, and we just cut them around the fields. That's pretty good. I will say a 35-foot tray for S680, 200 bushel beans, 2.7 mile an hour, the engine light comes on. I do know that. If the combine tilts a little bit to the right, it'll choke up going into the chopper and choke everything up in there pretty fast. And it ain't no fun to clean out. But I thought they hadn't changed the fuel filters in the combine, and farm manager, he said, yeah, if you'll pull back on that stick, said, I think it'll solve your problems a little bit. So ended up cutting him about 1.8 mile an hour, 2 mile an hour. That's pretty good. Now we was pushing them. We needed to wait about 3 more days to cut them, but with the hurricane coming, we was, like I say, it rained south while we was cutting the field. Never give up. Y'all remember when we started talking about this at the very beginning? Who in here would have thought they had a chance of improving yield on that field right there? About R6, probably, maybe it's R5, R6, depending on where he's at in the field. A few places was, might have been right on that area right there, maybe a little further along. So I stood out in that field, Dr. Dan Poston, and went and sampled it for us. That was this past season, this past July. Greg McMurray, my nutrient guy that works with me, he does a great job for me. He sampled it, and it was dry weather, potassium deficiency. So we pulled the samples that's in the lab, they come back exact same thing, what we suspected it being. Every one of them said, not much you can do about it. Too late. We just don't think you can influence it and get a return. So I called Chad. What do we do, Chad?
Put half on what I told you to put on. He got scared. I mean, we've seen in other slides and talked to people in here, y'all know it. Like I said, late in the season, it shows in the slides, it shows in the uptake. Late season nutrients, we're filling that pod or packing that bean full, getting weight of the bean. I don't care which way you want to look at it, but either which way we're making the bushels. So it's just a matter of going back to late season nutrition. So if you look, we got it here in the top, but we still got a lot of pods to fill. So all the pods, where's the base of the main part of the pods at? In the middle. So, it's just don't give up.
So we're trying to make you think differently here. I had a free product sitting there. Product that was given to me and they paid me to use for Extreme Ag. A lot of product. So I went through and Chad and I talked and we discussed everything we had and what we've been seeing in tissue samples and products we've been using. We knew we had to hit it hard with potassium, but we also didn't want to cause more tissue damage than we already had. So one thing we've learned over the years is if we want to prevent tissue damage, our humics, solvents, and sugars, you got to figure out which ones will work for you to go in with those products to soften that burn on those plants. And I really like the molasses-based sugar product. Sweet Success is a product that I use mostly. It's molasses-based, it's very economical, Concept Ag. sells it. There's a lot of other companies out there that's got them, and you need to get what's economical. Molasses base, I don't think one is any greater than the other. Do you, Chad?
I mean, you can test a bunch of sugars, I don't know who's tested sugars, and you can test sugars, but sometimes you're gonna see this great result on this field. I haven't got it worked out by no means. If anybody does, I'd love to hear their thinking on it. But we can test it on one field and we do really good. Test it on the next field, we don't see anything. So it's still, it walks all the way back, still, a lot of it walks back to biology, soil biology, and soil health. And I know that's, we don't wanna go down that road for sure. But, you know, it's cheap. A lot of sugars are cheap and we use them a lot in furrow and in applications like this to buffer is when they're used the most for me.
We've actually used feed grade molasses. Go to the dairy, got a couple of dairies around, go down there and get it. Now, let me tell you, that stuff's thick.
Don't go to Sam's and get it to follow you home, think you make them win.
Yeah, it's thick.
Because you need a
I tell
pallet.
you, that stuff, but you need to be hot weather when you're using it, because it's like K-Rib, it's worse than K-Rib syrup, I reckon. But it's cheap, but it works. It's a real good product. We'll use that in irrigation. But in this situation right here, I'm gonna show you what we decided. Now, I asked him, I said, what kind of yield goal do you think I got? He said, well, the problem here, he said, I don't know. They said, I ain't sure you can average 50 over the whole farm. It was growing, it was getting big, it was just growing out across the field. And I said, well, if y'all remember earlier, I pull out my driveway, get to the stop sign, and I'm looking at this field every morning. And I'm getting a little older now, I didn't really want to have to leave before daylight, come home after dark, even though my wife would tell me that's what I do anyway. But, so, this is our action plan. We got a Aggie all-wheel steer sprayer, 120-foot boom, using high-pro ultra-low drift nozzles, 15-gallon water carrier, foliar K, which is a form of potassium acetate. We put it 1.5 gallons per acre. Concept Agritech made that product. They had it in our warehouse. Nature's has got a product called Sideswipe that we've had really good results with in corn. I said, we're gonna try it on these soybeans. So we put a quart per acre. I think it called for a pint. And we'll put a quart. That foliar K, they didn't want no more. What was it, 1 gallon max?
Yeah.
And so we done
I
that.
thought about 3.
Yeah, he did tell me, he said, you need to put 3, but I was like, I don't want to kill it. He's in Alabama, he had it. But 14 ounces of sweet success. Now, Brant, doing our research work with Extreme Ag, it was interesting. I've never been a big fan of surfactants, I'll be honest with you. I'm very, very cautious over what surfactants I use. But Brant's Indicate 5, we got one of the guys working with me running a research farm for Bayer, well, it was actually decaf at the time, out in Hawaii. And he had done a lot of research on surfactants. And he told me, he said, Kevin, to get the fertility in the plants, they did all the chemistry analysis. This product right here was the one that they could get the best fertility in. So they sent it to us to use. I have no idea what it cost. But the Indicate 5 is a surfactant. We maxed it at the maximum rate that it said to use. We put a gallon or 1,200 gallons of water. And then when we hit those bad areas in the field, I bumped the rate up and I was putting about 2.4 gallons of potassium, or that foliar K out there, when I bumped it up in those real bad areas. Got on the plane, flew to Sioux Falls, and forgot about it for a week. Come back and the field was back, not plum green, but it was green. Those yellow areas had just about faded out, back to green. Well, I didn't kill it.
We left Sioux Falls, and right before I got on the plane, I seen him, I said, good luck going home. Wait till you get home, good luck checking the mailbox.
But what I didn't know was our flight got canceled due to the wildfires in Canada. And we ended up renting a car and driving from Sioux Falls all the way home. And a guy at the field day that lived in North Carolina, he never made it before in my life. Oh boy, he was obviously a smart young man. When I talked to him, very intelligent. He walks up, he's there, he says, "How did y'all get a car, a rental car?" I said, "Well, I got lucky, but I've been out there so many years and rented so many vehicles traveling that I knew the guy that controls all the rental fleets for the government, for her rental. He'd give me his card one time. He said, "If you ever need anything, just call me." Well, we went down there to rent vehicles to drive home because they said they didn't know when they would get us out of Sioux Falls. And I had to be in Pontiac, Illinois 2 days later to speak at Precision Plant's place. And then Jay Webster was presenting too, very smart guy if you ever get a chance to hear him. So I picked the phone up and I called my daughter, she's upset. Miss Cindy ain't real happy. It's 9:30 at night in the hotel, in the airport. And I called this guy and I said, "Man, I need a rental vehicle." He says, "Well, you know, with COVID, we can't, you gotta bring it back to the same area." He said, "Hold on," I said, "Let me check something." He said, "We got a Infinity something, SUV that just come from California." He said, "We'll let you take it to North Carolina." Well, the guys down there at hers at the counter, they was just about furious with me because they've been telling everybody you can't rent vehicles to take nowhere. So the gentleman standing there that we just met at the field day didn't know nothing about. He said, "Mind if I ride with you?" I might as well. So we jumped in there, 18-hour drive, a guy I never met before. But I said, "You're gonna have to help me ride." But we got home. And luckily, after all that driving, the field was still alive when we got there. But yeah, he shafted me pretty bad. He got the earlier flight out. We didn't get it. Whoever thought a wildfire in Canada would close. And it was bad out there. It really was. So right here is the harvest map. So I told you guys about there in the field with the wildlife damage that I ain't got no business planting, but I go on planting. You can see it right there. That was the field average, 91.7. It was seed size, folks. Don't ever give up. Now, was my people telling me wrong information? Was Dr. Poston telling me wrong? Was Greg McMurray telling me wrong? No. They never had an opportunity to try something like this. Would I have went out and bought, what did I spend there? $70, $60 an acre, probably?
Probably so.
Would I have went and spent $60 more on that crop? No. Dr. Poston wanted to see the yield results on it. He said, "Kevin, I want to give you 50 bushels acre for the whole thing." He said, "I walked it." You can see that ridge right there. I ain't gonna hit that point. But the ridge where it's shallow, that was where those pictures was taken at. And it did. It dropped down, but it's still making 70 to 80 bushels. Fourth quarter, folks, if it's corn, soybeans, or wheat. Maroon Bio company is big in more specialty crops. They signed on with Extreme Ag for us to do research for them. I'd never heard of them whatsoever, so they sent some products out and we did some tests. We did a lot of stuff with Cornell University as well. And they wanted it on wheat, corn, and soybeans. We put it on there. We did one with, it was 20% flowering and one application of 40% flowering. The 40% was a 6 bushel yield increase for that product on wheat. The 20% flowering, when we sprayed it, was a 36 bushel yield increase. I have no clue what the product costs per acre, but those are the kind of things that we're doing. We're doing that, we're seeing what works. Soybeans, it had some yield increases, but it was kind of inconsistent. No bigger than the yields were if it was more than $10 or $15 an acre application cost, you wouldn't make money on. But I hadn't seen everybody else's results, that was just mine. Corn
Mine
had,
was around a bushel and a half, 2 bushels on the bean.
so it'd be that same
And
thing.
this was the pace setter, is that right?
Yes, sir.
It's a fungicide additive, if you would, I guess it's a, ain't that what you would say, it's a,
If you got money, everything's additive.
yeah, I mean, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
I guess that's what it says.
But it works, I mean,
It did this year, we'll try it again, it did this year.
I think it likes grass crops better than legumes, because I seen a bigger return on corn, where it would have made money on corn. But that's, that was one of the advantages when this happened, when beans got to that point, we had so much group effort, that's what we did. But I think that's pretty cool that you can make a difference at the end like that. So, we talked about high yield stuff. This is a normal, everyday 70 to 90 bushel yield environment. This is what I do on my farm. My in furrow is, I will use at this level, most of the time I don't run in furrow. Sometimes I do, and I'll add sugars in furrow, water is carried. Sugars is typically the Sweet Success product is what I use. There's others out there just as good. That 8 gallons, I put the triple option up there, because Roger, you're gonna have to call him and tell him what Kevin uses, and it comes out like a 2.91721. But the only 2 products I've ever used is the Rogers and the triple option. I usually test 1 load a year of that, and then I use about, several loads of Yield Plus.
So this is no dry fertilizer.
No dry fertilizer whatsoever. So just figure, for this year's price, figure $7 an acre. $7 a gallon, for your triple option. So less than $60 for your total fertility program. That's 2 inches off each side of the road. People that grow soybeans. I have cut many acres of 100+ bushel beans with this program. I don't always have to come back with a R5, but if I do, I use a cheaper product. I'm not gonna spend the extra money for the Revitec. I've gotta make money. I've absolutely gotta make money.
Have you run this program on behind wheat?
Yes, sir. We actually started out, we was not using it on wheat, and our wheat yields was running on soybeans, and that's why we like full season beans, is our yields are so much better on full season. But our yields was running 45 to 52 bushel. And then when we started running this program, we're consistently 60 plus on double crop. But I'll show you. Well, yeah, it's on, I didn't realize it's on there. The first 300 acres that we harvested the full season beans this past year, that was the farm average 94.6. That was multiple different fields. That was upland. There was 90 acres of river bottom in that right there, which they was 100 bushel beans easy. But it really wasn't that big a difference between the upland and the river bottoms. We had good rainfall right there in that area, and they were desiccated. I will tell you, how many in here desiccate? Any of you guys desiccate soybeans? Got one couple. We started out being forced to do it for the research. My first year wasn't a bad experience. My second year, or my third year, was that you sent me pictures of, and that wasn't fun. And I kind of shied away from it a little bit. Still done it every year, but not consistent. But the last 2 years, we're now at 100% desiccating, and it's just about straight across the board. Biggest thing for us is we was done harvesting the first week of November. And typically at home, you won't be done by Thanksgiving. And you know what the weather does, the closer you get to Thanksgiving, you get shorter days, you get less running opportunities. And, we spray we'll spray no more than if we can harvest 150 acres a day, then we're gonna spray 110 acres. And we're gonna make sure that we can get harvested what we spray. Products we've used the Sharpen and D45. It works very good. I do feel like it's a little bit more littler on the pod. The Gramoxone at 12 to 16 ounces seems to be more gentler on the pod with a good surfactant, but you're looking at about a 12 to 14 day harvest on that before they'll be ready. And they actually are, it's amazing. You look like one day and they just ain't there, and the next day they're ready to go. We do see heavier test weights when we're desiccating. And what we've learned is the soybean is just like the wheat. Every time wheat gets wet and gets dry, it loses quality and test weight, and the soybean the same way. And once that soybean gets down there about 54, 55, it just seems to stay there. Yes, sir.
Have you ever, you know, when I was talking about beans having 60 pound test weight, I remember cutting 60 pound beans. You know, a secret to that?
I have not cut none since Astro had a number when I was in high school, 55, 60. And they was 61, 62 pound test weight, and they was as oily and shiny as anything you ever seen. And those were the last ones I seen until 2020. And we cut 61 pound test weight beans in that were desiccated. And then this year we replicated again. We was in the 59 to 62 pound test weight range. Now, that was cutting beans before they ever got to 13%. We was cutting them at 14% was as dry as they got. After we got into harvest and we had a little delay on these, or breakdown, just whatever you want to call it, it seemed like we was staying 59, 60 pounds. And then, as we was getting a little further behind, and those beans had done dried down and got below 13 a couple times, then I was in that 58, 59 pound. And then once they get about 56, 57, they just stay there. And the custom beans that we cut for our laborers was right back cutting 55, 56 pound beans. This air dry. Yes, sir. Yeah, if they're 14, 15% was for the air. And we'll start in the mornings, they might be 17% when we start in the mornings, and then by the middle of the evening, you know, they'll get on down there 13, 14, you know, 13, 7, 13, 8. And but we put them in bins, we don't fill a bin up, I got 3/4 million bushels of storage, so I've got pretty good storage, moving around, good air flow. Yes, sir.
What state is discount that as far as, what's the good rule?
Good rule of thumb on desiccation.
What was the question, desiccation?
Yes, sir. What's the stage to desiccate, good rule of thumb? We've got some real good videos on Extreme Ag to teach you how to do that. Rob Dedman is the best at it that I've worked with. These Matt Miles is, because they're in the Delta, and the Delta's been doing it for years. I mean, it's just a normal routine. The top 4 nodes of the plant. When those top 4 nodes are mature and the membrane is fully separated between the seed and the pod, then you're ready to desiccate. It's a lot earlier than you think. That's what threw me off. In the past, I had waited too long.
Usually it's leaves.
Yeah, I was looking at the leaves. Now, you gotta remember that soybean plant, the top of the plant matures first, then the middle, then the bottom. And that is where, in my opinion, and this is an opinion, so I'm no PhD or nothing, I'm wanted to try some. But what I'm seeing is, when we desiccate them, we're getting that plant to dry down evenly. And we're getting all those beans out before they've had a chance for the top half or top third of the plant to sit there and get down to 8%. And then the bottom down there still have pintos on it. And that's green stems, you name it. But now if you wait too late, you can still have green stem issues even though you desiccated because you didn't have enough foliage to kill that plant. You just burn it off, basically.
Think about it, you don't have grass or anything else in there, that's.
Yep. It runs, oh, it cuts like butter. You'll save money on fuel. It's just, it's great. But it's another tool we have to use. Now, a lot of people like to use helicopters and airplanes. One thing I hadn't got into, I mean, I could shoot, Chad and I could go for a whole day showing different things. But, we did switch from, I was a diehard John Deere man, but, I will tell you, I will not own a sprayer again that's not all-wheel steer in the front of it. I won't do it. And the reason for that is our field size. We have so much headland that all-wheel steer, you would not believe the difference in yield gain having 2 sets of tracks versus 4 sets of tracks. And when we desiccated the beans, we did everything ground rig. We was in the exact same tracks every time. I always like to spray in the early morning. That way, there's a dew, everything was tough. That way, if I did hit areas in the field where the beans were dry, I wouldn't shatter them and knock them out from the ground rig. And we got too many houses for helicopters now. We've had 3 exceptionally good pilots that has lost their life due to accidents. One, well, actually 2 of them as partners. One of them was the best pilot I've ever seen in my life. Never seen anybody that good. He misjudged a power line and his landing gear caught it and nose dived him into the ground. His wife had been put up to the field. I seen him crash. It was as bad could be. that was in March of 21. And in July of 20, his partner was spraying at Rocky Mount, down the eastern part of the state. And some dove hunters decided they was gonna hang on the cable across the corner of the field for the doves to light on. And he had done sprayed his field earlier that year. He went and sprayed fungicide on the corn, and they had took and put the cable diagonally about 400 foot across the field and put in that cable and killed him. So he just ain't worth it. It ain't worth it. We knocked some out from the ground rig, so be it. At least we knocked them home to our family. But if you know, Chad, you use more airplanes down your way, I believe.
Yeah, if we use airplane, then we have to use salt or something a lot of times, and the salt's real slow. If you use salt, it's 21 days or something. I mean, it's like, I can't even, it's not even worth it. For me, it's not even worth it.
But I think that's what it is, really, is that, you know, when our traditional dry down of our soybeans, it takes so long for that plant to dry down, and those pods, for them seeds, they get so out of whack. You got beautiful pods, you got bad pods, and
every year matters, and every variety matters. So
every year is different.
It's definitely a timing thing, and it's to get the combines. You may be gaining a lot with the combines. Just get the machines in the field, get everything moving, and kind of get some crop out is what we need for the most.
Is there anything we hadn't talked about, or something that y'all want to talk about? Yes, sir.
Drip irrigation, what it would take, you plant with tape, crossways, and
So the question is, with the drip irrigation, do you plant with the drip tape, diagonal crossways, or does it matter? Actually, if the drip tape is put in, if it's designed properly for the field, and it's working properly, then it does not matter. because ideally you don't want any hot spots. You don't want a streak that's wet and a streak that's dry, or otherwise the crop's gonna do that. Now, I will tell you, the first year that you put it in, maybe the first 2 years with these clay soils, if it's dry, you will see row. You'll see the drip tape show up in the field, and it'll look like that right there. But once that soil gets conditioned and those heavy root masses grow, and then when they die out, then you get capillaries from those dead root zones. It just takes less and less water to do that. But,
Kinda like the first deal with tile, is what you think.
yes, sir. Yeah, just like tiling. Yeah, it takes you a little bit of time to get over it. But, I have seen that though, where, some guys have wanted to go to 60-inch centers in our soil types, and it never would meet the bill. It just could not do it. But I'm assuming y'all soils are like Chad and I's, but we're 12 days away from the drought and it quits raining. We can go from the flood to the drought in 12 days.
You do it cover crops.
Yes, sir. Yeah, we want to keep something growing all the time. Usually it's barley, or a lot of them neighbors use triticale now. But I use barley most because it's cheap. It's just, we'll grow 100 acres and save yourself off of it. And, try to get 8,000 or 10,000 bushels of cover crop seed. Any other questions? Anything y'all think of? We can't answer it, we know somebody can.
On those lower populations.
Yes, sir.
Any problem with consistency as far as root pressure?
So the question on low populations, are we seeing issues with consistency?
How about your soybean population?
Yep. The soybean population with seed pressure, wheat pressure, excuse me. So we do have Roundup resistant pigweeds and marriage tails that can get pretty ugly at times. And as long as we got a consistent low population, no. Now, if we got inconsistent, like that field I showed you where there was some gaps in there, yes, we had some pigweed escape in that field, but they was areas that was a 5-foot square with no plant. And a weed growth there, it sure did. But at our 80,000 and up, even 70,000, that's consistently spaced throughout the field, no, sir.
You couldn't drive
What
by.
do you do those, you know, if you let those 5-foot squares go to seed big weeds, what are you gonna fight the next year?
Well, in that situation, that's the only time it's ever happened in my life, but like, if you remember, I wanted to replant the field, my daughter didn't want me to. So, we pulled pigweed as a family. And it was not too fun. And there was some massive ones out there. Because what got me, you would walk the field and you'd know good and well there was none left out there, and you'd drive by the next morning and pop the field.
I mean, there ain't nothing you can do before. I mean, you're right. I mean, if you leave a hole, it's coming. They come. But if you got a 70 or 80,000 stand that's pretty close to uniform, you drive by with a pickup truck, you can't tell it from 120, 140. He got some good big weeds, y'all.
Well, while he's looking that up, if you'll help us help you, we have an evaluation form here. If you fill this out and turn it in as you leave, we'll give you a measure picture for your efforts in filling this thing out. So this will help us going forward on what type of topics and things you would like to see at these workshops.
That's what worked out right there. Thanks for coming back.
So, I'm gonna play a little 4-minute video for you guys, and this is, a lot of people's asked what is Extreme Ag, and what do we do? It's a it's a website, and what got this going was we all have kids that's coming back into the farm. and you never know when your last crop is. And what's the worst thing we're bad to do is not write down and tell what we've done, or how we've done it for that next generation. So we decided, when I go around and speak different places, I noticed that the website would jump up at our farm. Just about every time an article come out, which now we do weekly articles and blogs and successful farming. Anyway, it's kind of hard to write about something every week, but we're doing it. Yeah, flat tire on kind of a big deal. Somebody likes it, but anyway, boring to me. But we wanted to kind of have a life term. We never dreamed how much money we were spending on research as a group until we started looking at what we was doing. We've got 100 acres dedicated research. I've got 135 acres dedicated research. You know, the bad thing, guys, is Jeff bring me a bag of corn there and says, I'm gonna give you this bag of corn here. Says, it's the best you've ever seen. That might be the most expensive bag of corn I planted. But now Jeff comes to me and says, I'm gonna give you $300 to plant this bag of corn, because I know without doing anything. Here's $300, you go plant. Well, okay, that man's put some skin in the game. I'm not gonna lose no money. I'm gonna plant that corn. Guess what? They don't do that. That don't matter.
I appreciate my policy.
They don't do that. But, so what we started doing was, well, Extreme Ag, everybody started coming to us and said, well, you know, you're sharing all this information with these members, we want you to try these products. I said, man, I bet you do. We're gonna take all the risk and lose our ass. Yeah, I know you want us to use these products. And so we said, well, this is what it would cost us to do it, because we've got hired staff and we've got to pay payroll. And so they agreed to it, and then one thing led to another. It's always open to money buy different things. So we get to see a lot of things firsthand, and there's, what, 60% of them fail. We've got to learn to weed them out, ain't we?
Yep. And another thing, and the best part of this group is it's 6 of us, scattered out, Alabama, Arkansas, North Carolina, Iowa, Illinois, and North Dakota, South Dakota.
North Dakota, no, South Dakota. Greater
I
South
get mixed
Dakota.
up, that's way too far from me. So it's us scattered out, so when we start this deal, like Kevin mentioned earlier, Matt will start planting in Arkansas, McGee, Arkansas. Okay, by the time he started planting, if he has any problems, I'm planting, Kevin's planting. We're seeing these problems and we're changing. So the biggest deal with farming is, you know, you can't get it for so many years. You got so many times to make a run at it, is all you got. So by this, in theory, I'm picking up 5 years to one. And that's where I look at it, you know, because everything we're trying, if he's trying the same thing, we're trying something different. We're putting it in his pool. And, you know, that way, you know, the biggest part of a farmer is, you know, is we don't share enough. We don't share enough information, and we don't share enough about what works. A lot of people's headstrong about that. We're not. I mean, I'll tell you, I've got a lot more failures. I mean, I bet it's 9 to 1, you know, failures in a 10 thing, and I'm gonna fail 9 times. One time, I'm gonna hit it.
I did that one time.
One time.
Yeah, I got married to that lady right there, one time. That's my story, don't stick to it.
But
I got
that's
home with her too.
That's kind of the way we look at it, is we get to share a lot of information with each other, and then the members we get, you know, and it's a lot of good questions, and it's just a good atmosphere for us, you know, to put this stuff out there, and it's a lot more work. Guys at my shop, my son does all the spraying, most of the spraying on our farm. He is not ever happy with me, ever. And I do all the experiment stuff myself. I mean, there'll be times that I'll put 200 gallons in the sprayer and go out there and spray one pass, come back, put 200 gallons, and do that 7, 8 times in a row. That ain't easy. It ain't cheap and it ain't fun. You know, but that's the stuff, that's what we signed in to do. And we just like trying to glean this information. And, you know, it's like anything, any of y'all's farms, you want to leave it better than what you got. And that's what our goal is, you know, to help somebody. If I help one young farmer that comes in and they had a dad or granddad that passed away, and they're early in this game, and the wrong salesman gets a hold of them, y'all, then they don't make a crop. They're so deep in debt, they can't get out. And if we can keep one of them from having and saying, hey, you know, just stay on this path and just kinda ease into this and just kinda get your feet wet and just keep your nose clean till you make your own decisions, it's worth it for me. Because that's the biggest problem, we gotta have farmers, we're still feeding the world, we still got the greatest nation out there, and, you know, we're gonna make sure and do our part to kinda keep it that way.
So we'll play this right here, and like I say, if anybody's got any questions about, working with Chad or I, or anything, or just want to see what we do, just get us afterwards, that's fine. But, we didn't come here to be advertising or anything, this is just, you've seen it on the slides and different ones as asked, but this is kind of what's going on. We have a lot of fun, it ain't always serious either, as you will tell.
Farmer I knew was a neighbor of mine, and he retired in his early 50s. That's pretty successful, guys, ladies. Not many farmers can retire like that.
Let me break in here just one second. So how old are you now? You wanna talk about it?
Close.
And how close to where he's at or where you're gonna be? It ain't gonna work. It ain't working for me. It ain't working for me. We're gonna roll the clock back.
It's extremely economical, very good way to make money.
Everyone's always asking about a silver bullet and how you afford it.
Can never add yield. As soon as you open that bag and pour it in the planter, everything we do subtracts.
It's breakfast time. I got hungry beans.
So feed me, things that you can do that is not gonna cost you money.
The belt looks fine, but if you start to see it change,
This is how you do a power shutdown, you get a lot of things accomplished doing it this way.
We are going to be showing some of the fertility aspects I have in my planner. Some of the things that really make a difference, as far as when we're getting the high yield.
If you don't have grain beans, you're at the mercy of the elevator, you're at the mercy of extreme high drying charges and long lines.
So what we're gonna do here is we turn this thing on, it seems like 30,000 seeds. Look at how the seeds are coming out. Look where they're hitting you in relation to this square. If we put it on that square, you can kind of see it, it's making the same thing every time.
Now we go up into the 40,000s. We got a whole lot less leaf area. And then here's that cigar formation lesion.
You go to a twin row configuration like this, you're spacing your seeds out to the point they don't have a lot of buddies that will fluid stuff. One of our biggest challenges on yield is getting the beans to grow through the corn stalk.
That's also going to give us a healthier pod, it's going to make this desiccation process easier from what I've learned so far over the last several years. That healthy pod very important. So those beans there are ready to
Let's
desiccate.
check to make sure that the stalk is good and round. If you're too oblong or too football shaped, possibly calcium, or some people say potassium.
This is 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4 are the coded for our starts.
We rode a lot, we're moving from field to field, and these things are balanced really good.
Good ear placement, sturdy stalks, nice and sturdy at the other row.
But I want you to look at the branching, this is something that we've been able to do with our 2x2, and then we go here to V5, notice how elongated that got. It would've been nice if we could've got a side pin or something in there since we're back.
At this stage of the game, we certainly don't want nutrient tie-up to affect our yield when we're trying to chase higher yields. And we feel like we figured something interesting out here, something that we will continue to use. Calcium thiosulfate is going to be another product in our toolbox.
I'm not wearing my hat correctly. Chad Henderson had these hats made for us, and when you're in Alabama, that is straight. That's why the name is like that. I couldn't figure out why the name was crooked on the hat. That's the Alabama wearing, and this is the Southern boy wearing right here.
You know, I'm so excited. I'm going to jump in the lake. It's barely 60 degrees here. I'm probably going to hyperventilate. I don't know if Amber's going to save me or not, but we're about to find out. Oh, it's cold. Some of y'all think we're kind of growing this in the swamp. We kind of are growing this in the swamp.
All these little things add to big things. And you back there right there is a good deal. You don't, Brad, you're not interested in making much more.
Yield means different to different people. Just like fat means different to different people. You know, you may consider me fat, and I may consider myself skinny.
Well, I'm gonna show you guys what happens when you talk on the phone too much and ain't paying attention and drop a wing off in a canal.
I do want to turn my hat like Kevin did and wear Chad Henderson's
Yeah,
style.
we gotta do Chad Henderson's.
Chad Henderson style.
F1 is a lot of baby powder. It takes the tackiness out of the new track and makes everything slide on a little bit more. So, and it makes the shop smell great because, you know, sometimes you really don't shower that much.
So that's just a little bit of background. Like I say, it's just, we have a good time. But, really appreciate the opportunity to come and speak with you all. Appreciate you letting Chad come. We got COVID right after Christmas. It turned out just kind of like a bad sinus infection and all that. It seemed like I kept a nagging cough. And, Monday I didn't know how well I was gonna be able to talk when they said 3 hours. So Chad said, I can be there in 2 hours, 2.5 hours. I said, hit the road, I'll pay you. So, anyhow, but really appreciate everything. I've had the opportunity to speak on the east side for the Kentucky Soybean Association. We had a great group of guys there before COVID, and then got to come over here and meet you all. And if there's ever anything we can do to help you, please don't hesitate to ask, email, or Jeff, Debbie, all of them got the contact information, and we're here to help each other. Thank you all.
Appreciate all y'all coming, today to join us for this workshop. Quick plug, tomorrow is commodity, conference. Early risers session starts at 8 o'clock. And then we kind of go throughout the day and finish up, the afternoon with our commodity annual meeting. And then, grand finale is the, awards banquet tomorrow night. So, I hope everybody is registered, and has a good time tomorrow. So, again, thank you so much. If you're going home, have a safe trip home, and we'll see you next time. Thank you.